We're starting stream.
All right.
Our producer is going to add on everyone else as soon as he can, and
Yeah.
he's preoccupied right now with walking his dogs, and
Yeah.
soon we will hear the results of that effort as he gets
Hmm.
home. Oh wait, they won't be barking when you get home because they're with you, right?
Um. Well, that could that's complicated. Like I said, it depends on how many. Anyway, a couple minutes. Yeah, a couple minutes
Yeah.
will be.
Yeah. So
I'll
he's
be
gonna
fine.
add others in a couple of minutes. He'll add everybody. I want to thank everybody who's listening right now. We're going to need upvotes, and we'll explain the situation, of course, through Aristides, about two different sets of
At
upvotes.
burner phone.
Ooh, man,
Try-
that wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, so I don't know if anybody heard that, but we're talking about burner phones from the last episode, which is now up at 40 upvotes, and my gratitude for everyone concerning that. And we are going to continue along this pace, no doubt, because we've gotten rid of Peter Moon, and I've gotten nothing but emails congratulating me on this. I have not gotten a single communique supportive of Peter Moon. Not a single one. All I'm getting, where complaints are concerned, is people bitching me out and cussing me out about why did you get rid of him years ago. It's I only wish I could have. We were trying to complete the book. This was a project that was supposed to make up for the fact that he had never paid me for the royalties from the other book. Which, by the way, when it comes to his private library, back at a time when I cared and asked him for copies of his book, like a full copy of his library, kind of like what he sent, well, precise. I asked for what he sent to Marina Sauron, and I never got that either. So one of the reasons why is the expenses of shipping, and he just was not going to spend a penny. He's the cheapest son of a bitch in the world, except when it's something that he's manically, fantastically, notionally infatuated with, enamored of, something completely stupid and impractical, or self-destructive, ultimately, as in holistic therapies instead of conventional medical care, which he can get for free. Or instead of the individual who's working with him for 10 years, he instead expends over $500,000 to send the library that he never sent to me of his works to Marina Sauron overnight to Spain. It was actually far more than $500,000. To overnight it is it's astronomical. It's something that is in the venue of people with truly discretionary income, which apparently he has to a degree because of his legacy of essentially murdering his parents, which is something that he alludes to in his book, The Seventh Seal, where when he's told that they're dead, he says, "Oh, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen." And he pretty much said as much on this show. I told them not to keep bothering me about my involvement with Scientology. I told them something bad was going to happen to them if they kept bothering me about Scientology. And, bigger and whale shit. Then his parents die in a fiery explosion that's physically impossible in a lead sled car like they used to make. We'll try and get Brendan on, our moto expert, and he's the local motorhead. He'll tell you why. All the details as to physically why it was impossible for that vehicle to go up in a ball of flames. Such being said, Sheila Gavin says transmission is loud and clear. Hart said Team DDD. T-Tank Barry says loud and clear, brother, 100%. Eric Cradle says, hey, Doug, my greetings to everyone. And let me respond to everyone in studio. We have, of course, Oktoberfest, the reason for the German flag theme as we begin the month of October. Oktoberfest is well underway in Germany. And we have, of course, the annular solar ecliptic, the Ring of Fire eclipse, which bodes and portents all kinds of ominousness. Again, Brendan can go into details on that. We are going to respond a bit to these wonderful people here, and I'll ask our man Aristides if he's set yet to start adding people. He'll fire at will the moment when
Yes,
he's...
I'm about to do that, and
Okay.
let me try something. I think I figured out an issue from
Okay.
last time, but let me
do it first, and then I'll explain it.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, I think I can explain it. Well, the problem is that I use Skype concurrently on the phone and on the computer, just with the actual call being on the phone. But I was trying to add people on the computer, and that was the issue. So I'm sorry last time for the awkward fumbling session that we had. But okay, yeah. So good now. So
okay, great.
Adding people. Brendan, everybody?
Everybody, just everybody, except everybody except Ian West.
Okay.
He can wait till later. If I'm
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Brendan, Amy, Victoria, Nemo,
Brooke, of course. Brooke.
Aaron message. He said he can't really talk before or after. He may pop on, but other than that, he's not too good for extracurriculars today.
Understood. Well, basically, what Aaron is saying is he couldn't speak before the show.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to try and join us as soon as he can on the show.
Yeah, he may pop on.
Yeah. And
Amanda, is she on the ad list? Or?
Oh, please. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, nothing against her. I mean.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I never heard you say anything against her.
I mean, Ian West, just so people know, he was showing himself last night while Brendan Zogit and Aristides and I were on a three-way call. He somehow knew we were on a call, even though I'm hidden. He kept sending communique to me, even though I'm hidden and I don't show myself as active. It shows a lot. It shows somebody's telling him that. We can ask him what kind of phenomena he's. There's almost no point. I mean, he's obviously an asset, but I've worked with the enemy all my life. Peter Moon exemplifies that. He's not exactly an ominous or threatening kind of enemy, but he's obviously an asset. When we bring the others on, they'll be able to explain that, and I believe Aristides could give a crack at explaining that phenomena of what we were experiencing last night. And Brendan, of course, will add his own depth and dimension to that. Okay, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see if my screen has gone white, which I doubt it has. I think thanks to Aristides doing this, everything's probably going to work smoothly. Hugs in order of appearance, and I'll return to my screen in a second. Let me just communicate to these people. And Nemo, you added Nemo, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, and so he can join us at leisure. All right. Nice. Okay. And I'm just saying hello to these three gentlemen. T-Tank Barry. Okay. Eric Cradle. And then I'll get back to the call at hand. Other than that, how was your day, Aristides?
It was all right. Working a little busy, but that's why they call it work, and not super fun time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, greetings.
Oh, welcome aboard. Cut loose. You can start by just venting and catharting. Vomit it all up. I couldn't care less. They deserve it.
Myself?
Yeah.
Myself?
Yes.
What exactly do I have to vent?
Jesus, what don't you have to bitch about? It's like yeah, that's kind of like where Peter Moon was at. Oh, this part of my body hurts. This part of my body hurts. Make a list of the parts that don't hurt, Peter. It'd be a lot shorter.
Yeah. Should I bring up the unnameable things or later? Or that's something else. That's something later.
Yeah, you can. Start with your family, and then we'll work our way to the unnameable things. By that, I presume you mean the anti-gods, or yeah. You could also explain to people about the Ian West exposing himself as an asset last night while we were
Yeah, that was bizarre, and he's still going. I had to ward him off, like literally ward him. So he went to one of our old chats, and he posted this thing that was an unnamed video MP4, and I'm like, I'm not downloading that. I'm not watching that.
Yeah, same.
And then he has this weird list, like this crazy person list, like literally like wall scribbles from an asylum. And then he says, "Hey y'all, I just got done with the news and it's gonna be epic." And it's like, dude, I don't want to see your manifesto before you do something, Like, I don't want to be implicated with your whatever's going on. with what he's doing.
Which he always thinks is epic. Whatever he's involved with.
And like, here's some of the points. It just says, rated by FBI, the book in parentheses, NYC school, Adams raids, feds in Zionville. And it's like, dude, you think that appeals to any of us at all? Like, I'm sorry, Ian, but whatever PCP you found is not, it's some bunk shit. Like, that is some bunk, low level. Like, he had enough money for the Breaking Bad stuff for like one day, and then he spent it all. Now he's back to that. Now he's back to that street baggy shit. You know? But yeah, last night when we were talking, he was like, somehow he knew we were all chatting, and he's like, Doug, you have to answer. Or what did he say? He said something.
Let me share a screen and
like
show.
It's an emergency.
Let me share a screen here and show to our lovely Amy Como. And so, dear Amy, we love you. And Ian, of course, like I said, he's an asset. He's not necessarily malevolent, but he's definitely. Here we go, Amy. Look at this. Come on, it's last night. Look at me. He says active now. I don't have that shit. Look at my status. I'm on invisible, honey.
You've never had it.
Yeah, and when you see that active, it means something's wrong. That means somebody's hacked my account. I never set that for active. I always set it for invisible. And yet somehow, whenever I was on a call with anyone, Trappist Nicholson, especially Brendan Zoget, Trappist Nicholson would get a notification somehow we were talking. Yeah. And he would definitively know, and he'd start spamming us with endless requests.
Oh yeah, he would be like, "Come on, guys, it's just I just want a pizza with you." Like he would send me and Doug like parallel messages.
Yes.
So it was definitive that he knew we were both talking.
That's correct. That's correct. Not only did they know I was on a call, they would know who I was on a call with. Ian West demonstrated that last night, where while I was talking with Aristides and Brendan Zoget, he goes, "Hey!" Now, this can be read a number of ways. This is not, with the number of asterisks here, this is not normal, "Hey, fuck, call me." This is like, "Hey, fucker, call me," or "Hey, fucking call me." And then he says, "I got something good for you." And all I could envision was his cradling his penis in his hands and waving it like a fat antenna. I mean, this is like the only thing you can envision when he says something like that. "No, that's not good for me, Ian." And we did not respond to him. And, it's just, this guy's an asset. He's getting notifications somehow when we're on calls. And back to Brendan and whatever the hell he's...
And then ever since that last incident with the let's call it the musical incident.
Yeah.
The
musical incident. No, go into some detail. Is that where he was at the library saying?
That's really where I'm at. You can, but basically, now every time he sends an MP4, quote unquote, I'm never gonna open it. Just so you know, Ian.
Yeah. Well, we never did. It's always.
Yeah, I actually did. Yeah, I never did. I didn't even listen to it. I knew how shenanigans it was.
Thank
already.
you. Thank you. I mean, look at what he sent Brooke Gibson. She opened it, and it was a young child being beaten up by a man. I mean, terrorized, beaten up, forced to strip. And of course she was deeply offended. And why would he send someone something like that? What does that help? I mean, we know this thing happens. We know this sort of thing happens. Slamming.
Well, that's what's so trippy about him is like, it's like the whole point of you talking is like agreeing with him, but he feels that he has to like let us know the news, quote unquote.
Yes.
It's like, and it's always about tunnels and FBI raids. It's like, this is like, it's like that pizza shit all over again. So lame.
Yeah, and it never ends. It's never ending Pizzagate. It's like...
which is like the worst possible scenario.
Yes, welcome.
Even if it is true or whatever is truth, whatever little truth is there is irrelevant at this point.
Thank
you.
Like
everyone knows, like... And everyone knows the rappers are all sketch, and they've always had sketchy parties, and the Weinsteins. It's like, we know, like everyone should know by now. Like we're up to speed. It's been 20 years of internet exposure.
Well, here's what we're going to do. Just before you get started on everything, this is going to take us down a road. I do want ladies first. We're going to let Amy bitch about whatever she wants. And but give me a few seconds here to do this. I am going to enter a comment in a few minutes, but we're going to have Aristides tell people why they need to upvote it along with this transmission immediately en masse. So Aristides, take it away, please. Thank you.
Sure. Well, as usual, we're going to say please put the upvote in the episode. We need this for the algorithm purposes to fight down votes you can't see, but they are in there, and bad actors put them there to affect the people's ability to find and see the program. Please do that. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be notified of beginnings of the programs, which hopefully will continue to be on time. And real quick, once you've done that, I assume you have an account such that you can do that with YouTube or Google. I think they're the same thing. You can go under your account settings and create subordinate channels to your main account without an additional password or login. All of them are capable of their own upvoting, so that's a real easy way to give us additional upvotes if you would. Or if you already have other channels, please go to them and upvote. But just remember to switch back to your normal persona when you're chatting. And then as far as now other upvotes, if you see comments by us or supportive of us and on the comments on the program, please upvote them as well. And I think Douglas will explain that more in detail, because there appears to be some comment voting wars yeah, so that would help, because they can disappear or be hidden if they're downvoted too much.
Well,
So,
what I notice right now is that my ability to enter a comment has been taken away.
I can't either.
Yeah, interesting. So we can't enter comments, at least for now. Hopefully when this publishes our uploads, they will be allowed. That was not the way it was in the past. I do remember in the past, people, including myself, could enter comments while we were transmitting.
As far as I recall, I haven't been able to do it during the live.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so hopefully that's the case. We're going to find...
Yeah, we would have to enable that, but usually they keep it separate because the live chat. We would have to disable the live chat for that to be a feature.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for that, Brendan. That's profoundly appreciated. So here's how I will explain it, but Aristides, rephrase it for me because it's important. Basically, what we're going to do very quickly after the show, like within minutes after the show, if not within the hour after the show is uploaded, we're going to publish the link to where you can find the book. And the manuscript, as Vinnie Barbaric, alias Peter Moon, would reference it in his later days, meaning his last days before, as he spiraled into a true insanity, just true madness. And when we put this link up, people need to upvote it immediately. I mean, just hit it with every account you got, because when our man Aristides is referring to these upvote, downvote wars, basically, it's two dirty old men. It's Vinnie Barbaric, alias Peter Moon, and Richard K. Cole Jr., both in upstate New York, or one's in upstate New York, bumfuck Prattsburgh, New York, out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. And Peter Moon is, of course, on Long Island, New York. And both these individuals are just spending all day staring at the screen and downvoting any of my replies to anybody who has asked me questions, and any of my comments that I've entered, just to inform people of new developments. Now, I don't do this often, and it's rare. So apparently they've scrubbed, or rather scoured, the entire channel. They'd love to scrub the entire channel, but they've scoured the entire channel, and they've hit downvotes together, the two of them, on every reply I've ever entered to anybody, going back with every episode. And so because of the strikes against me, because of Ian fucking West and the Bulgarian bozos that Peter Moon set the ambush up with, I'm not allowed to link in the text box, or I would simply include the link to the book within the summary of the program. But thanks to Peter Moon and Ian West operating on behalf of the enemy, on quite consciously and malevolently so, even if they appear to be bumbling, oblivious idiots, which they may well be, but they're still malevolent and they're still the enemy. As I said, I've been forced to work with the enemy because I have no choice. When it comes to someone like Ian, literally sometimes I just have to leave for a few moments and take a break. I cannot, like, just sit here and allow myself to dribble on air or something of that nature. So we get Ian West to dribble instead vocally, and it's relatively harmless, you would think, but really it's not. It's not, because it gets strikes against the channel. Now, he's been more harmless lately because he himself has been eviscerated because he no longer has access to the dark web while he's live, because he's operating off of his cell phone. But if it gets to the point where he's getting his computer back or his servers back, it's over. Right now, he's relegated to the public libraries where he works on child porn. This sounds absolutely bizarre. I've articulated it before. This guy has the porn novels written by Michael Aquino that he's been put into music. He doesn't have computers at home to work with, so he's doing this in the public library and is risking getting caught working with child porn in the public library. Now, what kind of charges might be brought against him depends on who's involved. There's no images involved. It's pornographic literature. It's not technically illegal in one sense. Then again, it might be. It depends on the state. It depends on if the feds get involved. Obviously, he's taking a risk.
The library clause
Yeah.
in my region,
Yeah, California.
specifically no
Literature.
nothing lewd. Yeah, it literally has like an overbearing.
Holy shit.
An over clause, just like you should only use it for authorized purposes, essentially.
Yeah.
Which means, and then they have a list of nudity, any sexual content whatsoever, all of it. So I would presume that in the terms and conditions there is text as well involved there.
Thank you. Important point. By the way, San Francisco Public Library, back in the old days, they've transferred that to a completely new building and then turned the old San Francisco Public Library building into the, I think the Avery Brundage Museum of Asian Art was transferred in all of its contents into the old San Francisco Public Library building. The new public library building is a joke. Architecturally, it is a atrium. It's built like a prison, and there's less room for books, so they had to amorage. They had to bleed out literally tons of old books that they were throwing away in dumpsters where people would dive and find valuable, like, first edition Gutenberg Bibles and shit that were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, that's the stupidity of the San Francisco Public Library system. That being said, the San Francisco Public Library, that is now the Avery Brundage Asian Art Collection, used to have a plaque on the building that said, "Please, no prostitution," which was apparently a large problem where people would be prostituting in the library so regularly they had to embed into the building itself a plaque ordering people to cease and desist prostituting themselves in the library, please. That's California for you. But they want to allow pornographic text on the computers. Whatever. You can't think about these things. They just happen. They evolve or the like. And such being said, when it comes to what has happened thus far, with these downvotes from these two dirty old men in New York, they are enough because of all the strikes against my channel to get any comment or reply that I enter to people removed. So what we're going to do is, as soon as the show uploads, within an hour thereafter, probably within minutes thereafter, maybe even moments thereafter, just BOLO. That's an acronym for Be on the Lookout we used to use in the San Francisco Police Department back in the old days. Basically, what you're going to do is have to hit that with every upvote you got.
Wait, so you weren't a policeman?
Yeah. Oh God, don't get me started.
No, I'm just.
No, I know. No. I get it, dude. I get it. I totally fucking get it. It's again, just part of his. Oh man, he was like, and just so I don't forget, I think of all the behavior probably long before people really could see this guy is batshit fucking crazy, when they just thought he was eccentric.
And I have definitive proof that he knew about it, because in that interview you did with Bartzis, he was tacked on to the end of the second part of that interview. And then when we reposted it, I sent that to Pete, so he's reviewed that interview where you go into detail probably dozens of times. He's seen that.
Thank you, because that was
because you guys talk about show and stuff.
That's right.
You and Bartzis. So he's reviewed that, and in the middle of that is where you explain that's like an integral. The show language is an integral part of that story about that narrative. The police department.
Thank you.
So there's no way he didn't know.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Because,
unless he's nuts.
Well, he's that, and yet at the same time was also ambushing me, because at that point he was always actively ambushing me. Every goddamn interview he ever set up was an active ambush. He was always the enemy, and he said such. He said such on air. Believe me, I kept this guy at distance for 10 years, and finally realized the enemy is all I have to work with. So I worked with the enemy. Because a lot of times that's all I've ever been offered. So when it came to the Peter file, basically what he had known about the Cho narrative that our man Brendan is referencing is that it came to the Cho language being recognized anthropologically. These days you can't even find it on the net. All you're going to find is shit. But back in the old days, there were academic dissertations on the Cho language that are completely scrubbed from the internet now. You cannot find them. Everything you're going to find is fiction. But I introduced someone to the police department who spoke the Cho language. And this was where I was trying to get them to use this interpreter to help break up a kind of monopoly that the Cho maintain in certain aspects of the underworld. And what happened was the police simply said, the feds gave us the order, we do not acknowledge the reality of the Cho, and therefore they would not take advantage of that interpreter. And as a result, of course, the Cho are given a 007 license to kill. They just have free run of much of the underworld environment in the greater San Francisco Bay Area Metroplex region. So yes, Peter Moon was intimately aware of this because he was obsessed with the Cho and wrote several chapters on them in the latest book. So that book is available. We're going to put up the link for it, which you can find on our episode preceding tonight's. If you want that link right now, it's on our episode preceding tonight's. And what we are working on is coherently adding a conclusion to that book, which
the link I put it in the chat.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I appreciate that profoundly. And everyone, if you purchase that book like now, and then we expand the book and delist the preceding, so we give you the same book with just a slightly altered title with the preceding book delisted, don't feel like you're ripped off. You would have been ripped off if Peter Moon had gone through with his business model. He was going to charge $1,000 each special leather-bound edition. You would have gotten the same book we're giving you for $10, albeit it is completely, shall we say, it's not illegible. It is, considering the fact that it was transcribed by a lunatic, it is... It gets the message across, but believe me, there's parts of it where the text just roams and wanders all over the place. Not necessarily in the narrative, but the literal text. The letters are formulated strangely. Believe me, you'll find out when you get there. But it's worth the price for the knowledge you gain, and it would be worth paying for it again as we conclude it more coherently. The part that Peter excised that is most offensive is the story of my late and sainted legal father. He has excised his experience with the Evanescers, and as a result, he has, shall we say, tried to protect the identity of Dr. David Lewis Anderson, who is an Evanescer, as I have argued in great detail in the past and talked about my own legal father's experience with Dr. David Lewis Anderson. So I do want people to know T. Tank Barry and anybody else with the wrench, such as Aristides, Tao is apparently fine. He's a friend of Aristides. Thank you for that. We needed to know that. We needed that clearance. Oh my God, International Party of Antarctica says good evening, Freighter D. Not quite sure about it. Want to be referenced with a Satanic Brotherhood title, but welcome aboard, at least for now. Thank you for all the emojis, and appreciate the Spock live long and prosper bit. Of course, supposedly that starts from some rabbinical signal, whatever. Such being said, okay, welcome to Dao. There's too many Daos to count there. But thank you for showing up, and with all of that, I'll try and give everyone a little bit of a proper welcome in a few moments. We now, I think, have adequately explained the fact that there's downvote wars.
Sounds better than those
Yeah.
those people that came before. What were they called? Zero Energy.
Oh God, tell them. Now, did they attack that Pakistani guy, or were they pressing charges against him attacking them?
It was a restraining order from their side to the other side, but it got dropped. There was no definitive any info in there other than that.
These people are all just a bunch of violent felons that.
Yeah, but it's suspiciously similar to the Trampoos.
Yes.
Where it was probably like the landlord, and they went berserk on the landlord or something, you know?
Yeah.
It's like it was suspiciously similar to his story, his backstory, and in the same region. It was like the same region and everything. He lives in East Bay, so yeah, it was bizarre.
Thank you. Some bizarre Lithuanian name. It's this Lithuanian name. They're of Lithuanian extraction, which that idiot Brandon Young claimed Dr. Doom of Marvel Comics came from. That's how stupid this fucker is. Just so people understand, there's this construct, fictitious geographic entity known as Latveria, which is supposed to be this kingdom ruled by Dr. Doom in Marvel Comics. And the closest you can get to it historically that would make any sense is Latvia, because in the early Marvel Comics, Dr. Doom is definitively speaking German. They are constantly giving him subtitles to translate what he's saying in his native nation. So the only nation that would have that kind of heritage where they would linguistically be speaking German would be Latvia, because they were a member of the Teutonic Order, a member state like Lithuania and Estonia were. But the name Latveria is obviously far more similar to Latvia than it is to Lithuania. Again, just part of Brandon Young's brain-injured, addled mind, just like Peter Moon with his addled denial of every photograph he sees as being some kind of Photoshop. Let me look back into the call before I start. Okay, so great. Rephrase what I said, Aristides, about the upvotes, and then we'll turn it over to Amy for a few minutes, or as long as she wants. Yeah.
Okay. About the comment upvotes.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Yeah, you should be upvoting the program all the time, but if you're on the episode after it uploads, where there are comments and you see comments and you see a link for the book at Smashwords, you should upvote that most importantly, and generally upvote anything Douglas says or anything positive anybody says regarding. But just don't just go upvote everything, because sometimes there's things that should not be upvoted probably.
Yes, thank you. That's beautiful.
Even if they're not.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else you can think of?
No, that's it.
Okay.
We'll check on it later. So
Wonderful.
put it as the last comment in the live.
Yeah. I want to thank Ronald Stroyny of Deep Space Pilots. Ronald Stroyny of Deep Space Pilots joins us in the chat. Shout out to Vicki Johnson. My love to Vicki Johnson. We're going to give some of these other people some proper greetings, but in the meantime, dearest Amy. Okay, so you've heard everything, and I'm not. It's obviously Ian West will probably be back, because I'll have need to burn bandwidth, and he's willing to do it. But oh my God, the worst is his camera. He seems somehow to think that he's got something to look at, like something we actually want to see. It's like. And it's always crotch level, walking around crotch level, giving us this view of this. It's the prostitute's view of what we would be seeing if we were giving him a blowjob, except he's walking. So it's like we're sucking him in motion when he turns that camera on.
Stop with the sexual connotations about Ian West. Nobody wants to visualize that. Nobody. Nobody wants to think about Ian and nothing. So let's just be really happy that after all, you got the manuscript off of Peter, and he doesn't come on anymore. I mean, how could this not be a win? I'm really just floored. Like, when you said that he was sick and blah, 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 I figured, oh, he's not coming on. But then you were like, no, he's not even doing the book. And then you're like, but I have the book. And I mean, it's just been like, I can't keep up. I'm very tired. But I am really impressed at the same time.
Thank you. It was, yeah, a lot of work. Go on.
Ian. I'm impressed with Ian. But I do like Ian. I don't know why I like Ian, but it seems like sometimes these people who annoy you to no end, including Peter Moon, who thinks that every time when he gets to know me, the more he likes me.
Yo, no, tell people about how when you were first introduced, he had just finished drinking some sake. And Brendan, tell people about how he tried to tell me about sake. Hey, Doug, you know what sake is? Like, really? That's...
I'd like to move forward from this place.
It's made out of rice. No idea. We learn something new every day.
Let's take it from...
The big reveal.
What did he say to you? What did he say to you when you said he asked you a question? You started trying to...
me move forward. We're not going back. We're not going back to that. He was terrible. It was the worst first time on anything I've ever done with the old man, who I was impressed that he had such a great mind at his age, because the people I know at that age don't. And then whatever. I can't go back. I mean, I'd like to go back to my dinner tonight. This is the second time I've eaten at a German restaurant, and the Spätzle was so much better.
Oh, wow.
This place had the really, I can't, like, you just eat 2 bites and you're full. It's so delicious. Yeah, I had German food again for the second time ever this evening. It was delicious. I have had really terrible luck with these restaurants lately, like trying to go out to eat, because like I get sick of the wood burning kitchen, and it's too much work, first of all, to have a meal when you're like trying to cook it on a wood stove. There's like an art to it. I've screwed up popcorn so many times. But so we eat out a lot, and a lot of the restaurants just are terrible. Like, the service is terrible.
They are. It's COVID destroyed everything. But go on. Or was it just always that way?
I don't know. I didn't used to eat out a lot, except when I lived in certain places. Like, certain places that I've lived were just like New Orleans, very conducive to eating out. Everybody eats out. It's what you do as part of you're supposed to do that. But here, I mean, I might eat out like once a month, but we eat out more now. And a lot of the times it's just like, I can't believe we spent that money. Like, I can't believe that sandwich was worth $2 and we spent $30 on it.
That's the horror of eating out. That's the argument against it. Yes.
Like, walking into these places, you have no idea, and it could be a place that you've been to forever. You've gone once a week for years, and all of a sudden, like, it's just horrible. Like, everybody quit, or the person who knew what they were doing quit. I don't know. But this German place, which is out in the middle of nowhere on the Canadian border, was packed tonight. Wow. We had to sit at the bar. Oktoberfest. I didn't even know it was German. That was the surprise. He was like...
That's delightful. You're so cute. Come on. Hey, by the way, forewarning here to everyone, I'm going to welcome aboard certain people like Dow. I don't know how many Dows he's got, and International Party of Antarctica. I know the last guy I showed this little emoji of elbows bumping to. These are bumping elbows people. He went ballistic and said, What the fuck do you mean, Doug? Dietrich showing me a picture of two butts bumping each other. Okay, those are elbows. They're not butts, all right? It's an emoji. I did not make the emoji. Just roll with it.
Jeez, that's a terrible one. I thought it was butts bumping together, too. I didn't like that one. I didn't know it was elbows. I didn't know. I was always confused by that one. It's not very clear. We should make clearer our emoji. We should definitely get clarity about emojis. Like, what the hell are people talking about, really?
Continue, dear lady, please. With everything else that's been going, you had some wonderful.
Amy definitely had a Hofbrau.
Yes.
When she was at Oktoberfest.
There we are.
I didn't know anything. I had iced tea. I'm just tired. Like,
You must have had the obligatory pint. Right?
Oh, I didn't. No,
What?
he got some drinks. I know. I don't drink. Is the thing of it. And when I
But
do,
it's like bread water. It's like German beer is different.
Yes.
better than anything else. I know. No, but I don't know how you could eat German food. Honestly, all the meat, like veal. Veal's pretty low on that vibrational scale, I'd say, for a vegan.
Well,
And,
yeah. Go
it's
on.
on the menu. It's like all over the German menus.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's
But,
great. I mean, I would eat it. I mean, I was explaining to Brendan.
I don't eat Spätzle.
Yeah.
I don't eat German food.
No,
But I eat Deutsch Brot. Deutsch Brot is sehr schön.
what is it? Can you
yeah.
tell me?
Yeah, what
I'm-
is that? What is
You
that? Brendan.
Deutsch Brot. Is
Brat.
bread.
Okay,
Yeah.
the bread, right? Yeah, okay.
German bread.
He says it with
That,
such a
that I have all the time.
yeah. He says it with such a distinctly German accent you couldn't understand it.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it though, because I really like this place, and I guess the owner is Austrian, and it's
Yeah, Österreich.
Yes.
he doesn't have TVs in the rooms. I like even more. I
Yeah.
think that's fantastic.
Yes.
But it's like, it's one of these old mansions on the Canadian border, and they were busy for a Wednesday night. They had lots of people there, which is interesting because, like every other restaurant we've gone to is like, we're never going back there again. Like, they didn't get any of it right. None of it was right.
It's so sad. It's so sad. No, it's horrible. There's something about the quality of service in most places has just completely disintegrated. But I definitely appreciate the fact that you've enjoyed yourself. Now, why does Tokyo celebrate Oktoberfest? Is he not Slavic, mostly Russian? Why was he just likes the food?
Yeah, he just wanted to take me to this place, and he had been there before. I had never been there.
Mm-hmm.
But he's German, really. Like, they come from Pittsburgh, and that has a really strong German heritage in Pittsburgh. Like, both sides of his family. But I wanted to bring him to meet my uncle because he's talking about work stuff and buying stuff that costs a lot of money, and I was like, I'd like for you to maybe talk to my uncle about it because I know he does this stuff. He might have one, in which he did, and he laughed when Tokyo asked him, and he was like, you knew I had one. I was like, I figured you probably had one. So yeah, I was looking to kind of get this $7,000 piece of equipment, and I wanted to have him talk to my uncle first. So I introduced him to my uncle. It was the first family member that has met him. And we were over there to go get lumber to do some buildings so that I have a place to put my stuff. And so yeah, that's what we were doing. And he just surprised me. He's like, oh, go this way. He's like, go to this inn. And I was like, oh, I never stopped here because I have family over there. Like, I was saying, oh, my uncle lives over here. Oh, my mom's grandmother grew up in this house over this way. And he was like, let's go to this place. And we went and it was busy, and they let us sit at the bar, and I looked at the menu. I was like, "Oh, it's German," and he just laughed. And then he stole one of the hats that they had for decorations for
Of course.
the
Uh,
October celebration, which it looks really good on him. So anyway,
that's cute. That's and how are things with the driveway? Maybe you could explain to people how things are evolving there. The gate crashing, everything progressing in any way, shape, or form whatsoever.
it's good. He has been running the tractor with gravel, and then I don't know what you call it. They throw the gravel down, and then he's put up this plastic. It has been really dry, and that has helped a lot. It makes it easier. But, the test will be when it starts to rain again. But it's dry right now. Like, everybody could pass. Some guy came over in a Mazda 3 yesterday
Yeah.
and was just hanging out. He wanted to take his dog for a walk down to the river because he lives in Burlington now, and he misses living in the woods, which I can appreciate having,
What happened to...
Sure.
Right. What happened to Mo with the snapping turtle?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's gone. It's been dry.
So
And he's been putting it in with gravel. And then today he laid down some cloth so that we can have some kind of rocks delivered. So just sink into the mud. There's like this... whatever you do to build roads, he's doing it. And it looks fantastic. It's totally passable now.
wow.
That's really good. Because we couldn't get any materials delivered because we couldn't get down the road. We couldn't get our own cars down the road, much less ask them to deliver stuff. Truck. So, yeah. It's been pretty good for the last week or so. Like, you could get through. It's not too many ruts. But we keep thinking the weather's going to turn, and it's starting to get colorful. Everything looks beautiful here. Our foliage has turned, and it's just been a really long season. This is kind of late. Not terribly late, but it's just been a really long go of the color. Some years we'll get a little bit of color, it'll get cold, it'll be really pretty for one day, and then it'll rain and all the leaves will fall off, and so it won't be sustainable. You can't drive around for weeks looking at color. But it's just started to really come into just beautiful hillsides of orange and gold.
Is this some kind of Indian summer?
It's just been a really long extent, because it was really hot this summer, which it hasn't been. Most summers, over the past decade since I've been back here, have been wet and cold. But this summer has been really warm and sort of wet. We did have some floods, but it's just been rather mild, and it keeps going that way. The nights, it doesn't get really down too cold at all. The gardens, typically August, you're going to be pulling everything out of the garden, and people are just leaving stuff because it's warm. It's almost 60 degrees at night, which is warm for here.
Yeah.
And again, it's the mold and all the other problems when the bugs, stuff, it doesn't get killed off the way it does if it's cold. But I don't like the cold. I'm certainly happy that it's been really nice and warm.
It's wonderful. And I appreciate that, and I'm so glad you got to eat the German restaurant and enjoy yourself. And it sounds like things are smooth. It sounds like you're in a much better space than you've been in at other times. And now, one of the things that was intriguing was, of course, before we go back to Brendan and his situation, which is dire, is there any feeling of need for yourself to try and find him employment or help? Did that individual Sean ever get back to you again, or did anything result further from anyone contacting? Okay.
None of them ever do. I've completely given up. as soon as one of these people who are getting paid to have a meeting with me tells me to call somebody else, I really just shut right down, because whoever they're telling me to call is somebody I've already contacted, and they have told me the same thing, call somebody else. So, I mean, I guess I've just kind of hardened to the whole idea, and I need to figure something out, because I'm not on any kind of a schedule, and that is really killing me at this point. Like, I'm not sleeping well at night, and I'm not being productive during the day. Like, I haven't looked at any of that mapping stuff, which I really love doing. Like, that was really exciting for me to do.
You're not the lady. No, I don't think you're the lady who left this voicemail with me. You're not the lady who left the voicemail with me recently complaining about what am I doing awake in the daytime. That wasn't you, right? Because there was no indication of where that call came from.
Somebody left you a voicemail about being awake in the daytime?
Yes. So, Brendan, come on, please, and share with us what you got in terms of both Brendan and I got very strange messages. And here's what's going on with Brendan is the dossier that they've assembled on Brendan is as fucked up as their confusion with my dossiers, because they've got my dossier kind of conflated with an alter that was created for a very specific job as a spy that was shown as the real dossier, as my actual dossier to Christine Joanna Hart. But Brendan, if you're on with us and able to come off mute, please by all means explain what happened with they invited you, Brandon Young style. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So like literally within seconds after getting off the phone with Doug, when we were dealing with some administrative tasks, I got this text message from a New Jersey area code that said, "Are you ready to play some golf?" or something like this.
Yeah, like don't forget our golf rendezvous. Pretty much along the lines of don't forget our golf rendezvous. You ready for some golf? Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Oh, let's play golf tomorrow. That's the exact text. Let's play golf tomorrow. Like they're trying to lure me out to the golf course. Yeah. And then when I told Doug, we were just Doug was like, "Yeah, as if you have $3,000 for a set of clubs and a caddy."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly. So why are they using that as bait?"
Because they think you're Brandon Young because of Richard K. Cole Jr.
That's what I said. Yeah. So we deduced that because our RKC has me every time he talks about me in his like poop column, he says that Brendan guy, he's always in trouble, but he's a trust fund baby, and he's just complaining to Doug for no reason and all this, like, he's just making it all up. So he has me mixed up with Brandon Young. Yeah. And so whatever they have on me is like they think I'm gonna go play golf or something. Like have money to fly out to New Jersey to play around a golf with someone.
Yeah.
That's their imagination.
No, they may actually think that you live in Boston.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's likely what's going on. They think you're Brandon Young. That's how much this guy has fucked them up.
That's actually pretty funny because like the names are similar, but it takes like some low IQ to mix them up, which is mostly the case with my situation. Like every time I deal with people,
right? And what this is the classic case where you've got a field agent who is so incompetent they fuck up the entire intelligence network. And so this is why competent field agents are so important. And what Aquino's biggest problem was, and this takes us back to Amy.
Precisely.
Yeah, thank you. Here's the biggest federal problem that you've got. The biggest advantage we have got as effectively a resistance movement. We're an open resistance to dystopia. What we've got going for us is the fact that the deep state is part of a federal government where no one can get fired no matter what they do. No one faces any consequences. Everything is sloughed off onto an amorphous nothingness where people just do whatever they want with no repercussions. And as a result, nobody does anything. If anything happens, and this includes the United States military for people who are enamored or silly enough or naive enough to be enamored of that branch of quote-unquote service. And remember, all government servants are supposed to be of service to you. You're paying taxes for police. You're paying taxes to federal investigators. You're paying taxes to bureaucrats, period, who are working in various buildings, in agencies, in surveillance. And most of this is part of a supermassive police state that basically eats up your taxes and returns, well, harassment to you. Harassment and terrorism. This is a dystopia that it's 1984 come to life. And so in living in this dystopia, anyone who doubts me and says, oh, we have freedom of speech, well, you're a fool. I am the son of Adolf Hitler, and I can't get anything published. I can't enter comments on YouTube. I can't reply to people talking to me because I got two dirty old white men who are a couple of faggots who are extremely homophobic and self-loathing, who have projected their sexual desire for myself because of my cross-dressing into a supermassive lustful hatred in which they're sitting down on the screen all day now, and their 2 downvotes take away everything that I enter because of idiots like Ian West, who got so many strikes against my channel that everything I do is monitored. Okay, this is not freedom of speech. I have no opportunity to speak. And, of course, I was once on various other venues that I've been deleted from, blocked from, banned from, because of actions of people like this. The deep state makes certain there's no opportunity for me to speak. I'm completely suppressed. And the only reason we exist is through guerrilla tactics using yourselves. This is your war, and you have to fight it. It's that simple, or this dystopia will eat you up alive. And but the people who work for it, since they do nothing but collect money, that was the biggest problem the deep state had. So they had to create fanatical faggots like Richard K. Cole Jr. and Peter Moon, who did nothing but dedicate themselves to terrorizing and harassing other people, and spent all their lives doing it. And this includes Daniel Arola, Jambo the Reese Monkey, otherwise known as Jameson Reese, Salman Sheikh, all the rest of these people who are assets of the state to give it this colored coon cadre feel, as if they're the Rainbow Coalition and shit. And they're all united in only one thing: harassment and terrorism. And much of it stems from, of course, your own U.S. military. The Zodiac Killer was a military asset. The Night Stalker was a military asset. I've gone into deep detail about this before. Your own military is not defending you. They are your worst enemy. Any historian will tell you that police services and militaries are ultimately deployed against the very populations they're created to defend. That's the inevitability of history. But in this case, it's well beyond that. It's rotten to the core, where this isn't just deployment. This is all they do is terrorize victims, randos at times, who are simply chosen. Victims like Amy Como. And of course, I think I could say this much: both her military stalker and, of course, the gang stalker assigned to me, who was supposed to produce a series of books that I never got a penny on in royalties, are both the name Vincent, essentially. So, such having been said, back to Amy about whatever you want to say in response to that about a lifetime having suffered as a stalking victim. And answer to people why you can't simply drive away to another state, that the grass is not greener elsewhere. You've been traveling the United States all your life as essentially a homeless victim of harassment, to the point where, of course, your parents, of course, either organically, but with some help from other agents, as is obvious, turned against you. And of course, perhaps this was all part of an intergenerational abuse. What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is that you're probably the only being out there to put that together in such a clear and concise and understandable manner. That is it exactly, that you cannot run from it. It is not something that you're going to be able to just slip it, like the way that used to be where the draft dodgers would just go to Canada, right? It doesn't work like that. This doesn't get solved by leaving the country. I know of another MIT graduate who experienced a lot of the same issues in her work, where she had a work contract in Germany, and at another, at a later point, it was just decided by her family that they were going to just sneak her back out of the country. And that's how it had to happen, where they just got her some money and said, leave it all there, get on a plane, it's over with. You're not staying there and going through this on your own in a country where you have no contacts. And that is part of the deal, is they want you isolated and they want to be in control of how you use the money. It's not just that they make you poor, it's that things happen where you cannot accumulate money. I was just thinking how wonderful it is that you have.
Sounds familiar. It's like parallel to my situation.
Yeah.
But I'll let you finish.
Well, that is just it, is that it's not distinct to you. And Marina Sarin did say that when I was on with her, is that you have to remember it's not just you. It feels like it's just you. It feels like this is something that could only possibly be a burden for you. And that is what you have to get your head out of, that sense that it's.
And that's why forums like Douglas's are so important, and
Thank
why
you.
they're so attacked.
Thank you.
Because there's not a speech, like he said, there's no freedom of speech for our side of the story, of course.
No.
Except when people like Doug stick up and actually give us time, you know.
Thank you.
So there you go.
You're not alone. You're not isolated. What they destroy you with is the isolation, the feeling of isolation. And that is ultimately what's so devastating, is you can't talk to anyone about this without sounding as if you're insane. So that's the idea, of course. They drive you into that position where you're trying to describe this to someone. And we'll get into that tonight. We'll be speaking of applied quantum mechanics, which would popularly be perceived as magic. And we will be explaining to people why it's important to understand that there was a time in human history, not too long ago, during the Middle Ages, when people would be tried for magical crimes. And they would often face the death penalty. People have revised that history so that all of it sounds as if it were a reign of terror with no rationale, as if it were a reign of insanity and madness based on patriarchy. That has been the revision of history. My ideology is to get people to understand applied quantum mechanics, this so-called magic, so that we will ultimately return to a legal system that will recognize occult assault. That, of course, is more obtuse than what we're discussing right now, which is out now gang stalking and terrorism. With that, we turn back to Amy for a little bit. So, Amy, take it from there, please.
I just wanted to bring up, as kind of like a bright spot, is they don't seem to be able to penetrate the group that's supporting you at this point. Yes. The first time in a long time, at the end of the month, you didn't have to ask people for more money.
Thank you. Yes.
That. The other component that I think is really worth mentioning is your microphone's still working.
Yes.
And you got a new keyboard.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's a very valid point, because like it was constant when some other people were here. It was like, and then on top of that, they'd rub the salt in the wound and say, I just spent $10,000 fixing my house, while we're like scraping by trying to fix the computer on the fly and get a phone on the fly. It was, so it's clear. I mean, it's clear as day, if anyone has eyes to see it, how deliberate it is.
Thank you. Not only deliberate, but obscenely, gratuitously sadistic.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. And that's the common denominator with all these people, just like with my so-called relations, which we'll get into at some point. Yes.
Thank you. Which is important. And so, go ahead, dear Amy. And again, I know you're not comfortable with this, but it's important to explain just how bad it can get. You can allude to the fact you came home one time and your stalker was serving your parents a meal. Like, imagine coming home to that. This individual who's been haranguing you for years, and he just comes in. Yeah.
I would see him once a year for 5 years. So we weren't close. Like, there should be no... Like, he should not be making food for my family, especially because he was married to 2 other women and forgot to tell me that. like that, you know, like that is the thing of it, is like it's all meant to shame and embarrass you and make you think like you're the fool for believing this guy, right? But I didn't really, like, I had no reason to object to him coming to visit. You know, like there was nothing, like, in your perspective as just a person walking around, you're not going to think, oh, this person is an abusive stalker. No, he's just a dude who's like interested in like traveling and, or like, I don't even know, like the whole thing is like I hadn't spent like even 4 or 5 hours with him. Like it was always just like a quick meet and then he would disappear and I wouldn't see him again for a year.
Do you know what that reminds me of? David Lewis Anderson with Peter Moon. Almost like a handler, but he comes in somehow. However, give people some enlightenment here. They do need some context. It is important to emphasize this was a military officer, called himself by the rank of captain, and turned out to actually be a military officer. How many years did it take before you found out he was married? And then how many years did it take after that before you found out he was a bigamist?
Well, his wife called me after 5 years. He had tried to meet up with me, and I resisted and said, "Oh, I'm in Vermont. I'm working at this ski mountain. Why don't you?" I'd left him a voicemail that had said, "I'm in Vermont. I'm working at this ski resort. Why don't you come? We'll go skiing." And his wife had heard the message and then called me.
Wow, that sounds a lot like the invite they just gave Brendan Zogit. Come to New Jersey and let's play golf.
That's so bizarre. So, you know, this is like so old for me. Like I haven't thought about this in a really long time, but I know it exists and I know I can't expect that it's ever going to go away. So the thing of it is when she called me, I immediately texted him to never call me again and to get help. Did not respond to any other texts or phone calls or whatever, like not from her, not from him. But then 5 years later, I was living out west and he got a hold of me to tell me that his wife was dead. And at that point I was like, this has nothing to do with me. I want nothing to do with you. So I called somebody I knew who could, you know, she had clearance, like she had a government job and she could find out what was really going on. And she, at that point, when he told me his wife was dead, I asked her to look into it and she said he had 2 wives.
Wow.
So there was no reason for me to feel any guilt about whatever had happened with his wife, which I honestly think he killed her.
I was about to say, her death sounded very convenient, and it doesn't sound reassuring when a man calls you, "Hey, my wife is dead," as if he had simply disposed of her to make room in his schedule for yourself. Continue.
Or somehow I was responsible for it because I never responded to her. Like, I never talked to her about how he lied to me about whatever for 5 years. Like, and I didn't, the reason that I think that the handler thing is kind of accurate is because it was always this thing where like nothing else in my life was going well when he would contact me. Like things would just be falling apart. Like relationships had just left. Like I needed a place to move to. Like it was always like he would just pop up with a "Hi, how are you?" You know, and I had no reason to believe that he, you know, that he was evil. I didn't care. There was nothing there. Like I wasn't connected to him emotionally. I wasn't like pursuing him as a love interest. It was just like, he was just there. And I had no feelings one way or another. But to look back at it, it does really feel like it was really contrived. Like anytime I would resist, it would become like really impossible to not agree to meet with him. So, and every single time I remember thinking to myself, you know what, I'm just going to tell this guy that it's over with. Like, I don't see it. I don't want it. but it never went like that. It was always like, oh, well, I'll get a hold of you later, and it's always like a year or two later. And so I don't really know how to explain it in a way where it doesn't make me look bad also, because like, why would I have anything to do with him, right? Like, why even
well, as I expressed myself, look at my position. I've had no opportunity to work with anyone except the enemy. There's no one else out there that's available. There is no one else out there that's available to you and I because we can't afford them. We're at the bottom of the financial barrel in America, where we're basically treading water just to evade homelessness, which you were not able to succeed in doing. You actually wound up homeless. And so you fell through the cracks, which I almost did several times, and very fortunately avoided your fate. But it wasn't that long ago that Amy Como was in a literal homeless shelter. So when you're at that level, who do you turn to? As you said, you ask the state for help, meaning the feds, no matter what state you're in, or you're trying to get help at the state level in whatever state you're in that's in the union. But for you, this has not proven to be effective. This has, now granted, I had an advantage over you by orders of magnitude in that I used to work with the federal government. So as a trained research librarian with a knowledge of bureaucracy, I was able to get myself in several programs, but they're attacking those programs now. And so that people understand, one of the things we're dealing with is my phone. We won't give too much away, but at the same time, there's nothing we're giving away about how we're trying to deal with the solution to the phone situation that's going to threaten it. Basically, we're contending with it so that hopefully by Friday, I will have a phone that I can use with unlimited minutes on it from this point forward. But it's basically something that we can't talk too much about until I get that phone in my hands and make certain that it works. But this is not from...
It is part of like the very real way in which I was contained. Was I didn't have a way to call people. And this is like, I'm still in that cycle of sometimes the phone works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it works at all. I think that whatever comes into my phone is, as you say, like just planted in my phone.
Yeah, just to clarify that for people, so people understand, in my case, it was ascertained by people who were literally trying to basically, look, I'm an older man. I don't adapt well to technology. I would go into the local jewelers, and it was, of course, a Jewish guy who ran the place. He had a young assistant, and this individual would help me with my phone. And by the way, Aaron Tice has joined us, so we're going to take advantage of what little time we have with him here to speak to these more occult issues right now while we can, because that's important. He reviewed our latest episode in which we spoke about Ubo Sofla and the Demiurge, and the fact that Brendan Zogit suffered a collateral echo in regards to that entity. So we're actually going to outline and articulate this chronology for the moment, but we will get back to this because the telephone has been a big part of silencing Amy Como and leaving her completely isolated, hopeless, helpless. And this is what they're doing to me now. We're operating at a guerrilla warfare level to get me a cell phone. It's not through these programs. The programs are now shutting me down. Not that they're denying me officially, but through the private contractor that's supposed to be providing the service to my phone and any other private contractor, I'm not getting working phones. All the phones that are arriving are simply dead phones. I'm not being given replacements for them. The new SIM card has never arrived. That was supposed to arrive to put in this new phone. So this is obviously, at some point, you realize there's no statistical possibility this is not a conspiracy. It's just happening too much. We've tried different companies, and none of them can provide me a working phone. We can go into this later as to how that works. But basically, it has to do with my mailing address, and everything is flagged. And anyhow, back to our man Aaron for the moment. Now, is your breathing okay? It sounds like there's breathing in the background.
For me, it's crickets.
It's crickets. There we are.
For Mr. Peter, I think he corrected you and said it was katydids, but for me, it's crickets, Douglas.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that profoundly. So
I've never heard a katydid play music like this. So.
Thank you. Yeah, tell us how you're doing, whatever you're willing to share, and how much time we have with you.
Everything's good. I'll stick around till around 11, and it's just a crazy time on the East Coast because the devastation in the Carolinas and Georgia is. I think everybody's just starting to get to hear the true impact of it. So there was a manufacturing facility in North Carolina that's completely washed away now, which produce the saline bags for hospitals, which is part of every surgery and everybody that comes into the ER, really. Yes. So hospitals are going to be, they're trying to come up with protocols where they don't use as much, but there's no way to not use as much. Saline is saline, and that's the first thing they do is put you on saline. Most people go into the hospital dehydrated. Saline saves 90% of the lives that are saved.
Thank you.
As far as the occult aspects of this, it seems like it was well planned out.
Yes.
And timed well, because at the same time of all this, you've got the port strikes. Yeah. And the West Coast is saying they're in solidarity with the East Coast. So at a time where supplies are very slim pickings anyway, now we have no port access. So it's turning out to be quite an attack of. The only thing I can describe it as chaos. So really, the Edomites is the only way to describe it. They're not looking to do anything other than create chaos and strife and difficulty, in my opinion.
Yes.
But I could be a little bit off on that. I've been wrong many, many times before.
No, it's quite so. The port strike it's unspeakable to me. I mean, the lack of humanity in terms of the damage that they are doing at a time like this. It's irredeemable. There's no right for them to do this at a time like this. It's outrageous and egregious. But such being said, what was your impression of the last episode and the discussion and where it went? And I would like Brendan Zogit to join in on this too, because you suffered what was called in the occult world an echo, where you felt what Peter was feeling. And I do want to put this into some context for all of our listeners as to what was going on with Peter at the time, and it will make the story clearer. You may think we've done this already. Yes. We really haven't.
No, you're right. We haven't. You're right.
Yeah.
And the echo was lingering. I was plagued with severe nightmares last night to the point where I didn't sleep at all. Wow. And that's never happened. Like almost, I mean, we're talking like extremely rare.
That is a rare,
and it was like
a rare
occurrence.
It
was like super extreme. Yeah. Like yeah.
No, this is important,
and I would attribute that to the entity in question.
Yeah. I
echo thereof. Yeah.
Yeah, I had very strange dreams as well, and maybe later we can.
It's also an eclipse corridor.
Yeah.
So the veils between the realms are very thin.
Yes.
So it doesn't help in that case, but it definitely affected me negatively. Just even talking about that being, and then also seeing it, or the echo thereof.
Yeah, don't be afraid to name it. By the way, it's not gonna call it forth.
I keep butchering the name. Not that it's a real name.
Understood. SväLAR for what it's worth. And again,
the only thing I would say there, and I could be wrong on this, but an entity as powerful as that typically doesn't have to do such things. It's like the most powerful people typically don't have to display the power. They just know they have it.
Yes.
It might be a lesser entity, but it might be SväLAR. I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but typically it's not the higher
it's just like a splash. It's like splashing acid on you.
Well, let's put it this way. What
radiation.
What Brendan is referencing in the dreams is not SväLAR. The echo he was referencing was a feeling of surround sound, sensorial impression of Ubosatwa itself. When I spoke of the demiurge in our latest episode, he got the echo of what Peter and Richard K. Cole's coven in Asheville had summoned. And that requires basically my starting to put things in context now while Aaron is with us. So this is what we're going to explain to our listeners in terms of the chronology of what happened. Recently, as everyone knows, I had surgery. And the surgery, of course, was quite traumatic. It was something that I was not prepared for really going wrong. But the surgeons themselves were confronted with several aspects of my physiology that, as always, proved to be a challenge. And I got this little letter, very nice, email, e-communique from V, someone I've known for a very long time, saying something along the lines of most deviated septum surgeries, where she said, I hear deviated septum operations don't actually make a lot of difference, but I hope it was worth it for you since you wanted to get one or were talked into it. Obviously, she's never had a deviated septum. So such being said, I do want people to know I've begun to appreciate the benefits of the surgery recently, but it obviously took some dealing with the trauma to get there. Part of the trauma being, as T-Tank Barry in our chat room can eyewitness testify to, he can provide eyewitness testimony to the fact that my nose was literally broken, disfigured, and reconfigured into the shape of a Z. All of that is impossibly healed at this point. Again, a hint of the flexibility and the pliability of my physiology. Of course, this is not something I ever want to go through regularly. It's not like in the films. It's not instant. Cellular action is slow and it's painful. So even though I'm semi-normalized at this point, this is surgery that for a while was very threatening. And Peter Moon obviously did not want me to survive. There are several hints to this. Brendan Zogit observed that when he sent us the manuscript, as he began to refer to it, and everybody here can testify, especially people who worked with Peter directly, Aristides, Aaron Tice, Brendan Zogit, can all testify to the fact that I'm sure our lovely Amy Como, perhaps more than any of us, because she is a note taker and she takes notes fastidiously. She actually is, in a very real sense, our record keeper for this program. And what people might notice is that Peter Moon would always refer to this as our book or something of that, my work, something of that nature. And then when he flipped, it became the manuscript. But at the time that it was his book, he had prepared a redacted copy. He had always intended to these redactions. The redactions were done before he suffered the stroke, or the cardiovascular event, as he calls it, in this oblique reference to a basically a stroke-cum myocardial infarction, in other words, a heart-cum brain attack. When he was planning this and then delivered that redacted portion to Aaron Tice, this redaction was prepared CIA style, old school style, where he was using such old technology that new technology was able to recover much of what he redacted, something they could not have done in the old days. He's thinking of the old school where people just wouldn't have this ability to put it through a program that essentially, shall we say, rolls back the ink. And in the case of Peter Moon, there was still some redactions. We're working through those. But the point is, the redactions were made when I survived the surgery, which he actually did not expect. So before the surgery, during the surgery, Peter was also saying, as soon as I came back from the surgery, and things were really bad, and I was in a lot of pain, and I was choking on my own blood. Literally, my greatest fear being that I had to lie down in certain positions. My biggest concern being literally choking to death in my sleep on my own blood, which the blood was worse than just bleeding. It kept coagulating, because that's the nanoplasma. It coagulates very quickly and then tries to resolve the issue by plugging it up. Now, all of this, I don't know if you've looked at the manuscript that was sent to you, Aaron, in terms of this in mind, you might notice that when it comes to the anti-gods, but particularly Ubosafla, Peter outlines them in bold. And Brendan, Zogit, Aristides, both of you gentlemen, help me out here and testify to the audience. This is the fact. In the manuscript, he outlines all
and
the...
it's even a different font size. It's not just like clicking bold. It's like the font was enlarged.
Yes.
It was like super emphasized.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, this goes back to, of course, for our listeners, people might remember one of the most embarrassing episodes that everyone on Team Dietrich remembers. Amy Como can attest to the fact this was Peter at his most unhinged. Peter has always basically condemned religions and certainly dismissed the what he called the metaphorical aspect of Scientology, which is a religion, and he acknowledged it as such. Yet when it came to the Scientology cosmology involving Xenu and other elements that are pretty accurately rendered via South Park and the episode where they're lampooning Scientology, Peter Moon would dismiss everything about religion as metaphorical, mythical, and outright attack religion when it came especially to Christianity. And this was due to his satanic background, where he hero worshipped the Satanists from which Scientology was derived. Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, etc. Peter Moon was such a practicing Satanist, he was given high compliments by the OTO that he was actually applying magic rather than just writing about it. And this was because he was actually casting spells that the OTO said were effective. They were basically acknowledging the efficacy of his spells that were being cast. This led him to a lifetime of abusing what I would call quantum mechanics and applying them via the acts of ritual magic, which then alter the very nature of the universe, at least to a limited degree, towards his own selfish ends. This is basically the write along or rewrite codes that you put into the Maya, as it's called, the sense of illusion, which is our world, our sense of reality, which then rewrites that illusion to one that's more amenable to your needs. This is what Peter felt he could do with impunity. But when it came to the anti-gods, and he was screaming about Brooke Gibson at one point, saying Brooke Gibson needs to die, and claiming she was of the anti-gods, he was acknowledging the anti-gods as if they were real. This was something he acknowledged as real. His then enhancement of the name of Ubosafla before I even brought it up on air was something that is quite revealing. Also, he kept trying to get me to speak of the name for months. Again, Brendan, you can testify to this. It was for months he kept asking, what's the name of that entity? That particular entity, Douglas. And when I said I'll have to look into my notes because it was a key phrase that was blocked in my mind by my psychiatrist, Dr. Tao Tran.
Yeah.
Yes, continue, please. What do you remember about it?
Yeah, he was asking you for it for a while.
Yeah.
Like every episode, he's like, can you go dredge that? And then private calls, he was asking you to look at it.
Yeah.
And you were wary of it because you, like, I guess got the feeling, you know, of just not wanting to deal with that.
Yeah.
And you were telling him, like, oh, I'm going to look for my notes. You were trying to push him off for a while.
Yeah.
So, but eventually you guys got it. You know, you went back in your notes or whatever.
Yeah.
But then when he flipped, he said, the entity's trying to reveal itself through Doug, when he was the one asking for it the whole time.
Thank you. Thank you. But
so that was the annoying part about it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, but it's so predictable. It's also so predictable. It's so in pattern. What I'm pointing out is the fact that Peter Moon acknowledged only one cosmology, the anti-gods. He had always acknowledged the Edomites as his true religion, though he never spoke of it except through myself. His eagerness to learn from me was palpable. It was palpable. And Aaron Tice can attest to that with his referring to the Vox Arca as not my toy. In other words, I had a toy, he wanted, and it was not his yet. Thank you. And this went on until finally when the surgery climaxed in what was a pivotal moment where he was openly speaking about the potential for my death, including directly after the surgery. He was really disappointed that whatever spells he was casting, because he was casting spells. Now, we've gone into this in past episodes. We don't need to reiterate all of that repetitively, but I do want people to understand that Peter Moon had been practicing spells for a very long time, to the point where his own wife was highly disturbed. He was obviously pathological about this. He was casting them at an industrial scale. All of this is relevant because who would he be casting them against? We know he was casting them against Paula, his ex-wife. We know he was casting them against her mother because he hated her, was even angrier when he found out he had been manipulated by his ex-wife's mother. He was more angry about that than the divorce. And finally, he was definitely casting binding spells against myself. All of this was articulated by him to me. And he was casting binding spells very violently, just with a deep investment of energy against Brooke, hoping and casting for her death. He felt that if she was taken out of the way, I would run to him with open arms, and he would consummate a physically intimate relationship with myself. And, of course, he was casting spells on Marina Sarin. But this still doesn't explain the industrial scale he was operating at. And it turns out he was casting spells politically. He brings this up in his final letter to Aaron, in which he says Douglas Dietrich is upsetting the political balance. And we realize all his politics were so partisan. He was casting spells against Kamala Harris, against Jim Waltz, against anybody he felt represented the liberal, progressive, democratic side. So he was trying to impact the politics of our world. Now, understand that in the old days, if I presented this level of evidence to the church, Peter Moon could very well have been burned at the stake as a warlock. And justifiably so. This is why I talked about history being revised to make the church look like the villain, when in reality, the church recognized the application of quantum mechanics from a medievalist perspective. And many of the people that they quote-unquote persecuted were judged and really deemed justifiably to be executed for the reasons that they were devastating the community with plagues, the death of cattle, etc. This is what Peter Moon was conducting on a level with all of us, meaning Brooke Gibson, myself, Brendan Zogit, who was a target of his ire, just people who he had a casual hatred of and wanted gone as if they were insects. And this was a level of abuse to the point where he became the neighborhood witch doctor and was recommending to a landlady who was a neighbor of his how to get rid of a tenant through a binding spell. I mean, when you're at this level of operation where you're just doing this the way an old lady crochets, there's going to be blowback, which he mentioned in his last letter to Aaron Tice. Now, all of this culminated when I didn't die with surgery. He wanted the book for himself. He wanted the Vox Arca for himself. He felt that by publishing the book, somehow that would be realized. And he also had acquired the Black Books from Maria de Andrea. Maria de Andrea, who we had brought on this show, who we referred to as a retired telephone psychic. She was this lady who was able to, quote-unquote, have some visions, predict the future, help people in an occult sense. She suffered a downward spiral when whatever jinn she was operating with essentially abandoned her. She said her talents were depleted. No one was coming to her anymore. She had lost her clientele. Then one of the last things he ever did in terms of a social act was take her out to a belated birthday dinner. And while Peter Moon was with her, she was explaining to him about how she had these black books, this great source for occult assassination that an individual who was a friend of hers had used to kill someone else, and now he himself was being eaten alive by cancer. This is what happens. You play with fire, you get burned. If you go nuclear, you're going to suffer the consequences of collateral radiation. It does not discern. So when Peter told us in front of Aristides and Brendan Zogit, I want those books, and ultimately got them, things went, well, he stepped up. And what happened was the occult equivalent of what happened on the night of the Broken Circle. So on the night of the Broken Circle, when I worked at the Presidio, a coven of Aquino's officers tried to summon and contain, essentially bind, the peacock angel. That was how we all became possessed. They went on to various fates of demise. I am the sole survivor, and I am perfectly possessed as a result of that occult Chernobyl, that occult nuclear meltdown. He suffered his own occult equivalent of a nuclear meltdown after he had gotten the name of Sවට-LAR, which, if you read anything that I've written in the book that was transposed or transcribed by Peter Moon, you will see I refer to Sවට-LAR only in the sense of abstract semantics. If you see Peter's email, he then identifies Sවට-LAR as the demiurge of destruction of the Adamite cosmology. Something I never said on air, something I never went into at any time openly or publicly. Peter Moon repeats, without naming the entity, only referencing it with an asterisk, an agent of destruction. It wants destruction. This is what he summoned with the help of the black books he obtained, with the help of the coven of Richard K. Cole Jr.'s in Asheville. Richard K. Cole Jr. himself was born in the Deep South in Virginia. All of this was the summoning of Sවට-LAR, and the intent was the destruction of myself and Brooke Gibson among all of Peter Moon's enemies and whoever he felt stood in his way, where he would have the book in the end, and ultimately, through his irrational logic, he felt that would somehow bring him the Vox Arca as well, by charging everybody $1,000 for a grimoire that contained no magic, but only elements of my life story as rendered via Peter's filter. He then, of course, by this summoning, well, the cult in Asheville was destroyed. It was flooded out. The flood destroyed many people. The results were apocalyptic. There was an earthquake in San Francisco that very night, though in my case I live on a pure granite Russian hill and felt only a tremor. The fact that it happened simultaneously to the flood. And then, of course, the storm proceeded to meander its way, as Brendan Zogit can describe, with an unnatural turn directly to Montauk Point. Brendan, give us a little detail there if you would be so kind, if you're able to come off mute.
Yes. So as the meteorologists had stated, they said it took on a pinwheel spiral formation, which is extremely rare, and I can attest that from people on the ground in Asheville, they were not told that it was going to either stay stationary or even go up that far north. And at last minute, there was a blast of hot air that spun it back, and it remained in place for more hours to, further time. It remained in place for a time that allowed it to release 40 trillion tons of water, which is like 4 months worth in one day, or like 1 hour or something absurd, like this absurd amount of water. And then that pinwheel formation had turned it to where it was pointed directly at, through to New York from North Carolina and South Carolina. So it was a very abnormal event.
Yes.
And you could see that on the, you can just type in, weather, whatever, through the weather apps. You can just check out the radar of it, and it's very strange looking. And it does terminate right before it gets to, New York area.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. And in that sense, it's very similar to Typhoon Louise, which devastated the U.S. fleet in their attempt to invade Japan. Now, all of this is occult in nature, but in the case of what happened here, for those who think that I'm being contradictory, Peter had given up because I had refused his provocations, I had refused his sexual advances, and had to be honest with him and tell him I had no romantic interest in him. I wanted this to be professional. At that point, he began to want me dead. And so when he began to talk about my dying openly and actively, This was the time he began hurling curses that were violent in nature, meant to dispose of myself, which he had been aiming at Brooke Gibson for months, and they had destroyed her life. She someday will be back on the show. She has no power now. She's in South Carolina. But someday she will be back on the show and can describe that her life has been a living hell. Those who have listened to her in the past know that to be a fact. Peter Moon was hurling curses at her incessantly, to the point where we could hear him lighting the curse candles on bandwidth during the show. Now, all of this being said, this already was having its impact when he got the black books and summoned the storm and the earthquake that he had intended. In my case, all this falls flat. I'm perfectly possessed by Lucifer, the peacock angel. I basically have the equivalent, the occult equivalent of a Star Trek force field. A shield up, if you will, at all times. They bounce off me, these kinds of occult assaults. I have a high tolerance for occult radiation.
And I'd like to.
Yeah.
Can I add
Please.
my little?
Please.
Sorry about the background noise. Yeah. Can I add my 2 cents about that? Is they attempted to do some major damage, but it was reflected back on themselves by the forces of divine and Melech Taos. That's why.
Yes.
That's why it was. It wiped out just the coven in Nashville.
Yes.
Whoever those beings were that did that.
Yes.
And the reason why I know that is because the boots on the ground in Asheville, the people that were on the side of divine were completely unscathed, and basically the satanic core of Asheville got wiped. In this person's words, they got rocked.
Yeah.
That's what I was told.
And to further clarify, for those that don't know, Asheville is the satanic epicenter of the East Coast.
Yeah.
So it's quite ironic that it got rocked the hardest and is in the most trouble when it seems to have been the epicenter of everything that happened.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting.
Understand, of course, that there's human hunting grounds, just bamboo woods for miles around, that have been used for human sacrifices for generations in Asheville. What happened with, of course, Peter Moon himself was he was instantly injured. He suffered blowback. He was so scared. This is why suddenly, first he says, I'm going to publish the book. Then suddenly, I can't publish the book. I'm scared to death. I'm worried about self-preservation. I'm worried about what will happen to me in terms of blowback. I'm worried about the public. His psychotic, or rather disingenuous, patronization of the public is absurd, except there is a foundation for him to voice it.
Yeah.
Go on.
Apologies on the interruption. I'm getting communique from some people out there. Oh shit. So he's saying he had to evacuate to Georgia. This is one of my good friends.
Yeah.
And he's saying, just saw a post saying the Asheville water system is fucked. Some are saying up to 6 months before it's functional again.
Oh,
gonna need a lot of paper plates.
It's gonna be.
So this is
at least
catastrophic.
that.
I mean, this is beyond catastrophic.
I talked to a lady.
This is some of the
to-
worst devastation I think since 05, essentially.
Yeah. I talked to a lady today who has friends that live there, and they luckily got evacuated, and they literally said they're going to get a truck when they can, pack up their things, and never go back. Like, I don't believe Asheville will be it'll probably be less than half of the previous population. Nobody's going to want to be there. It's that devastating.
Yes. And Brendan, while you're speaking, give people a little history of the Black Book and the horrible German of August Derleth, whom Peter Moon covers for in the book. We will revise and expand the book later to explain how Howard Phillips Lovecraft's, H.P. Lovecraft's estate was stolen. But the man who stole it was August Derleth. Tell them a little bit about the history of the Black Book, Brendan.
Yeah, let me recover the notes of that real quick. Just
take your time,
because that's important.
Yes.
To be a little bit accurate with that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Amy?
I gotta go.
We love you. Stay safe.
I'm
and
walking
be
around
well.
something out here, and it's like slithering away.
No worries. We love you. Stay safe and be well.
I love you, and I think this is fantastic. I just wanted to add, back when you were sick and you let me know that your actual sinus infection was dust mites,
Yeah.
yeah, that is exactly what I was dealing with at that time, that I was never able to tell you because it was always like, I can't believe this. It was, it was just like, every bed we had was full of dust mites, and we had to bring them all out, and we were without bedding for about, I don't know, 2 weeks. Has it been about 2 weeks since you had your surgery?
And of course, you do know the difference between dust mites and bed bugs. Yes, you didn't have bed bugs in the beds.
No, it wasn't bed bugs.
Okay.
It was dust mites, and they were so bizarre. It was, they were attracted to certain things and not attracted to others. It was like I had a bag of potatoes, and the mites had gotten in the bag, but they'd gone after one particular potato, and the rest were fine.
Yeah, they're
But
like
they
that.
were
Go on.
falling on our bed. Like, we had 2 beds. Both of them ended up on the lawn.
Yeah.
And the bedding was just, we needed to do laundry. And it was like...
Oh, yeah. Oh, eat that in a moment, Brendan. Amy is saying, so the mattresses were saturated with the dust mites, and you, got rid of those.
They were bizarre. Like, the way that they clustered around, like, blue glass or my cell phone. Like, that's how I was checking the blankets to see if they had them, was like laying the cell phone on them, and if it didn't have any on it, then it was probably fine. But when I put the cell phone on the mattress, it would just be covered in these mites.
Good God, that's so horrific. Thank God I don't have.
Oh, it's like, you know, like, that's what I couldn't believe. Like, I was like, how does it happen that, like, this particular thing is going on with you and with me also in such a way that, like, it's like a timely thing,
Right?
like, it's happening simultaneously. Like, you're getting help for your sinuses for this particular thing that's now, like, all over my living space.
Yeah, it's outrageous. It's see, this would be part of the synchronicity that would be recognized by medieval courts. Someday, politics will change along with technology when applied quantum mechanics, or rather occult assaults, are recognized as legitimate assaults to be prosecuted, not persecuted, but prosecuted. We will have a justice system that recognizes occult attacks and prosecutes, not persecutes, but prosecutes the guilty. And with that, we love you dearly. Stay safe and be well, dear Amy.
Can't wait to this later, but thank you again for letting me speak, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, we look forward to that. Thank you. And yes, Nemo has joined us. Say hello to everyone before we go back to Brendan.
Hello,
about
everyone.
Thank you. And so, dear Brendan, now speak of the
I
Black
was just
Book.
going to quickly
Please!
let you know there's some guy in the YouTube chat,
Oh yeah.
Bloody Raw Truth,
Okay.
just saying, oh, it's a book and not technology guy. Yeah, Douglas, it's not a book or magic. It's military tech. We're not children. I don't know if this guy's trolling you, if you already know him.
I don't know this person at all, and to me, it's
people like that. When they say, it's like, can I say something on it?
Please,
You can go ahead. It's like when people say, "Oh, this is hardcore. This is like the military has tech." It's like if they had like viable tech where it could be done every single time, they would use it every single time. That's definitively not possible or probable. The only way they can do it somewhat reliably is with occult means, and Divine always responds by squashing them like bugs. So that's the only way you get a response like this, is if there's intervention from Divine itself. So that's what I would like to say.
Thank you. Blood Raw Truth. Understand this much. First off, you get people who look at these wildfires and they'll claim a lot of them are beams from orbital satellites. They'll say, look at how the cars all melted, like in the area of the Twin Towers. Look at how the cars all melted. Brendan, help me out here. Cars are now made of fucking plastic. Yes, they're melting with flame. It's not fucking heat rays.
And aluminium, has a low melting point. Like, that's definitively a couple hundred degrees.
Yes.
So yeah, and then you could see the husks of the steel and stuff. Like, there's no metal frames anymore.
Yes.
Definitively.
Thank you.
So yeah, they can melt with just a normal fire. That is. And especially if you're getting in the realm of like battery powered cars, I mean, they'll just explode. I mean,
Thank you.
like, yeah.
Thank
Like
you.
the lithium will just melt through steel anyways, you know.
Yeah.
It's that strong. So like,
Thank you.
overreaction, so.
So
It was most definitely a normal fire, but it was intentionally started.
oh yeah, see, that sort of thing happens all the time. Yes, and
Yeah.
but such having been said, just let people understand that the book is a technology. It's a technology in the sense that you're using a technique of applied quantum mechanics that has been tested and proven over many centuries, millennia, as a matter of fact, and is far more reliable than high technology. At this point, it's considered such by your military. You might have these beliefs in a high-tech military. Your high-tech military simply uses that technology towards trying to better apply what's called magic, which is merely quantum mechanics. But such being said, back to the book. So, Brendan, the history of the book, please. Yeah, in brief, of course. Thank you. And
Yeah, so I have it here. What we had outlined about the unspeakable cults. Let me just get the notes again because that's important.
yes, thank you.
I just got sidetracked.
This was from
So-
Maria de Andrea that was acquired by Peter Moon, something based on what Brendan is talking about or affiliated therewith. Go ahead.
Presumably.
Yes.
Presumably. He also, well, he specifically said Italian grimoire. That was the
Yes.
one that did the killing. But he mentioned other black books. So the origin, this is what I said to Doug. The origin of, and I spelt it specifically origin, of the black book, it was called Unausprechlichen Kulten. So that's the German that August Derleth had translated because apparently he was a fluent German speaker, which I didn't know about. You possibly mentioned it, but it is the title of a fictional book by H.P. Lovecraft, which was also mentioned in Robert E. Howard's short story, The Black Stone. Like the title of the book, the band's name, what they're saying the book's name is grammatically incorrect German. It should be either von aussprechlichen Kulten, of unspeakable, indescribable, or unpronounceable cults, or unaussprechliche Kulte. These are just like the grammatical corrections, otherwise known as cult. You know, so like it's like in English, you say the unpronounceable cult, or you say the unpronounceable cults. It's slightly different in German, so he mistranslated it for H.P. Lovecraft when he was referencing it. And then, so this thing, and it's funny because that thing I sent you, the article I sent you, was of course altered because I sent it to you.
Oh my God.
So,
that figures.
but it's in the story. It's supposedly written by someone called Frederick von Junst with the help of numerous blood-curdling and partly suspected sources, and the surviving members of the cult of Ganathotha, which is the unspeakable cult, Unaussprechlichen Kulten, which is the nameless cults or the black books, which is said to have been published in Dusseldorf in 1839. And they scrubbed the whole part about the book itself, which is funny. But
Yeah.
I'm sure I can dig it up on the internet through some other wiki.
Okay.
But
explain again that this
basically
is...
these cults would write down the way to invoke their deity, because just as the name states, it's unspeakable, so you need other ways to do it. And they're always referenced, as I said before, they're always referenced as black books.
Yes.
So when Pete was saying, I've got the black book, I just want to look at the black book.
No, he wanted to have it. He said, I want to
It's
have
not
it and
just-
use it.
He told us, oh, it's just a grimoire, but he kept saying black book, black book. So the black book is not a grimoire. It's something else.
Yes.
That's what the point was.
But the more proper German would be something of the cults whose name cannot be called upon or spoken. And H.P. Lovecraft had to correct August Derleth's podunk German, correct?
Of course, yeah.
So
He did in fact, but the the publish, because he ended up being the publisher. He
August Derleth, you mean? Since August Derleth ended
August
up
Derleth,
being the editor and publisher after H.P.
So he
Lovecraft's
either
death.
changed it back or
changed
just
it back.
didn't fix it as he was told.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Thank you. Important point to be made, which Peter refused to put into the book. But Peter then got what he said was that book. And then Peter used it. When Peter used it, and along with his cooperation with the cult in Asheville, and all hell broke loose quite literally, and Hurricane Helene tore America apart, then Peter Moon said, this is a danger to the public. It's not that he truly cares, he's psychotic, but he's trying to use that as an excuse to cover his slime trail with this, shall we say, facade of concern. But at the same time, he kept saying, oh, it's blowback to myself, because he was literally afraid of being found out, as irrational as that is. Because, as I said, go back into the Middle Ages, the evidence we're presenting could have had Peter Moon burned at the stake. Whereas today, people would be dismissive. Peter Moon is still living in the past. He was exposed to SwLAR, and he melted down. That's why he said, I'm going to pretend I'm sick. I'm going to dismiss the project. I'm going to... And then when he called Aaron, and then Aaron said, oh, you sound really sick. This is similar to what happened to me when I was a child, very young, jumping up and down on a metal collapsible chair. And this metal collapsible chair collapsed. And it cut deep into my thigh, behind my... beneath my ass cheek. And on my right thigh, it cut me to the bone. Now, the nerves were all cut, so I had no idea this had happened. I felt no pain. I would have stood up again, except my psychotic sister just casually observed, yo, you're cut open to the bone. And I said, oh, of course you're lying. Then I looked at it and I started to cry. This is what happens to a person who suddenly realizes something devastating has happened. This is what happened with Peter Moon. He's basically saying, I'm pretending to be sick. I'll get out of this project entirely after what went to shit. And all this damage was done. And he's got this fear, irrational as it is, it will be traced back to his actions. And then when Aaron says, dude, you sound really sick. You should get some help. He suddenly looked at the injury inside of himself, his brain, and he went into total meltdown. Now, thereafter, the email he sent to Aaron Tice, without naming SwLAR, references him monotonously, basically monofocally, saying, he's destruction. It's all destruction. Something I had never brought up publicly. And then said, then tried to basically transfer all guilt onto myself. There we give it to Aaron from this point forward. Now, Aaron, please, your analysis and also your review of the latest episode. Because, before you review that, Brendan, tell him about the echo. And when I described the demiurge, you yourself had the sensorial echo of SwLAR.
Yes, I was... when we were on that episode, I was sitting in a park on like a hill in the grass. And as you were describing just the whole demiurge concept and all that, which I had known about, I know about the demiurge and I've, studied Gnosticism and all that. Like, as I said in that episode, we kind of went over that. But this entity was completely different. It was overbearing and and I was channeling a little bit of the, I guess, like the description of it, talking about like Ungoliant and the things that Tolkien was talking about. And there's a reason they're unspeakable. It's this, it's this grotesquerie, it's awful. Like whatever it is just really not, it's not something you can speak in human words. It's that bad. And it sounds dramatic, but that's literally how it is and why it's that way.
Thank you.
And why they're called unspeakable. And the nameless things, as Tolkien called them, they remain nameless because they are so awful that there's no reason to bring them into this reality field as they are.
Thank you.
And just even the blowback from that, like I said, I couldn't sleep last night. Like I was plagued with dreams of like being chased down hallways and like going from door to door trying to escape something. It was awful.
Good God. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It was awful.
And so people understand Peter Moon was undulating in this. He got the full surround sound effect, complete with probably synesthesia, the smell and the taste and all the senses combined into a full meltdown of horror. With that, we turn towards Aaron Tice. It's yours. The stage is yours, dear Aaron.
Yes. So it's, to backtrack, there's a history for this, but everything, hindsight's 2020. So I've read all of Peter's books, and it brought us here, and every book references Jack Parsons and the Babylon working ritual, which was between Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, which was Peter's personal idol, and Marjorie Cameron. And now I can look back and say, well, now I understand how he got an audience with Marjorie Cameron. She was humoring him for the spell he cast to get there, which to me is telling. And so if we observe that, we can see that there's been a magical lust his entire life. And, Douglas has described many times there's a pay to play penalty in this universe. And Douglas was born into a situation where he got a religious education the wrong way and a medical education the wrong way.
Thank you.
But Peter obviously paid to play back in the day somehow, somewhere, and he was obsessed with Crowley, his illegitimate 17th son, Amato Crowley, and he studied them very deeply. He wrote about them very intuitively, and I think, I was not knowledgeable about the other factors. I didn't know that Douglas kept Peter at an arm's length for 10 years. Peter told me, I just found this information with Douglas Dietrich. I thought it was fresh information that he had found. He was actively pursuing Douglas for many, many years. And if you're lusting after magical acumen, who better to seek after than the protege of Michael Aquino, or not really the protege, but the liaison, as Douglas so eloquently puts.
Though he did consider me an heir apparent for quite a while.
It would seem so. It would seem so. So if we look back with clarity, we can see that there was a magical lust, and that we are dealing with the trade of power, and magic is power, and it's a recipe for power, and people guard it very well because it's powerful. It's just like true martial art versus imitation martial art. And I believe Peter was seeking the highest level of power he could find. And when he finally got Douglas to unlock a memory of the name of the unspeakable demiurge, he submitted himself to it like a blatant, arrogant fool.
Yes.
Conducted a ceremony to summon it, to do something mundane. It's not even world-changing. It was just such a simplistic task to hurt someone who doesn't deserve to be hurt. And he brought a world of pain down on himself. And I think this explains how it went from, I'm going to publish the book tomorrow, to I'm scared for my life. So hindsight's 2020.
That brings
like
back to mind something that I saw, is that these beings, or whatever they are so vast and so empty that for them to even be bothered by someone on that level, it's like, to them, it's like what we would do to a fly or a speck. Just fling it off as if it's something detestable, and that's what happens. That's what I saw with it. It's too immense for just one person to deal with.
Even though he was working with a coven in Asheville, it was not enough to contain this entity. No. Yeah, and just so people understand, even the meanest, and I'm using that term in the classical sense, not as cruel, but as smallest, even the meanest among the anti-gods will tell you they are the greatest. But when it comes to the few entities that really rate or rank that kind of definition, you come to basically a unholy anti-life trinity that would comprise Azathoth, Ubosafla, and Yog-Sothoth, the god of portals, who represents the entire anti-tree of unlife, the tree of the undead, if you will. And so when it comes to this kind of trinity, this is the level of what Peter was attempting to harness in his hubris with the cult in Asheville and his connections to them through Richard K. Colt Jr., because he began to regurgitate the Richard K. Colt Jr. party line. He began to say SÄUBATH-SÄULAR, who he would not reference by name, but only as an asterisk, was all about destruction. He began to transfer the responsibility for all of this to myself, and say that he was concerned for the public, knowing, of course, the damage it had done. It was almost his way of covering his tracks by then saying it goes back to Dietrich. Is this not the case?
Well, let's clarify. Douglas, you've made it public that you've done how many rituals? 2 or 3 in your life?
Just about 3 in my life. It's
your life?
Yeah,
now,
in my lifetime. Yes.
You can accuse you of whatever you want, but you're very honest about everything.
Yes.
And we know that Peter was casting spells left and right. So if Douglas has performed 3 rituals in his life, he obviously treats it with a healthy respect, with logic, reason, and empathy. So we know which side of the fence we're on this. That's just
thank you.
So clear at this point. And it's obvious that Peter just lost himself when he became obsessed with this entity. He got the name, and we all know. I mean, if you go back to the story, whether it's real or not, of Moses in the burning bush, you know, when you get an entity's name or a person's name, you have control. That's the magician's way, or the magician's way. Peter got the name and went to town on it, and it just destroyed him. And this has been his search. So he found the highest level of power. And all these things are coming clear. I had turned Peter to a particular Tai Chi artist who I told him that this particular person traded favors with entities to get his power. And I was very perplexed as to why Peter didn't turn away at that point, because to me that's not enlightening. It's a shortcut. I'm not interested in shortcuts. And Peter actually followed him more closely at that point.
Of course.
So obviously he has no decorum for such simplistic trades, and he was just seeking a higher level of power. And I think this happens with people when they're nearing the end of their life and they're trying to find a way out, and they just can't speak the name of Jesus, or they can't claim the blood of Christ, or they can't find a higher divinity to take them home. They seek the most powerful entity trying to destroy everyone. And this is extreme hubris, just absolute extreme hubris. And it's very difficult to process. I mean, it's been a couple weeks, and I'm still processing. I still can't process the storm. I mean, this is Katrina Heights, very little media coverage, and help is being turned away by the local authorities. It's really, it's insanity. It's chaos, which we all know what chaos is and where it comes from. So it's quite enlightening to be able to discuss it in this type of a forum and break down what happened and how it happened, in my opinion. But it's like there's so many details that go into it. I had sent Douglas the picture of Jack Parsons at Moorhall Studios. It's hard to trace. It says between 1947 and 1952, but they say he died in 52. Who knows? There's no reason Jack Parsons was in Moorhall Studios. And for those of you who don't know, Moorhall Studios was the original animation studio in the U.S. It's where all the original cartoons came from. So if you've got Jack Parsons, who is a top-level occultist, and probably as much hubris or more than Peter, because Aleister Crowley dismissed him and dumped him as a student because he was too insane. Now,
and then deployed L. Ron Hubbard as an agent against him to sabotage him, no less. Please continue.
Exactly. So you've got this extreme hubris seeking after intense occult power, and now he's in Moorhall Studios. And I asked Douglas, what is Jack Parsons doing in this picture? It's obviously him. He's very unmistakable as far as at that age.
Yes.
And he said, well, he's consulting with the people who are animating cartoons to make them as occult as possible. So it just further elucidates and elaborates on the occult shaping of our world, which again is mostly illusion, and Peter was shaping his world with a better bent towards him in this illusion. So it's really quite enlightening. I haven't processed it.
Well, let's put it this way. Brendan Zogan, if you could bring up a little bit about the Fantasia connection. Jack Parsons was consulting specifically on cartoons that would become Fantasia, among the other projects that he was providing the occult background to, including the Headless Horseman. Old school Disney was extraordinarily frightening. People would break down and cry.
Extraordinarily?
Yeah. It was deeply black magical. It was basically you had a cult wherein the godhead was Walt Disney, and I can relate to him to a degree because the man was dishonorably discharged. But he, of course, had his own agenda. I wouldn't actually, I still never have investigated him that deeply, but I don't consider him on the level of Aleister Crowley in terms of evil or Michael Aquino. But he may well have been. I need to find out more. But we can't find out more from people like Ian West because Ian West has already prejudged the individual. Everything is the tunnel, the trading kids. I mean, you can't go anywhere with that because he's already reached a conclusion that he puts at the forefront of his argument. In terms of, Brendan, if you're able to unmute, he might be involved with his work. Then he can tell us a little bit about some of the aspects of these Disney cartoons. But the other aspect of this that we can continue on till Brendan becomes available, Aaron, is the fact that when you showed the photograph to Peter Moon, as every photograph showed to Peter Moon, would present him a historical reality that he would automatically reject and deny and then assault you psychologically for even presenting it. Please.
Yeah. So I sent it to him. I said, Peter, I found this picture. And again, very few people have dug into Moorhall Studios. So it's a very niche research.
I mean, dude,
subject.
your average person has no idea it ever existed.
Right. So I said, listen, I found this picture of Jack Parsons. This is very concerning. This is not part of the narrative. I don't know what this means. Does this ring any bells? He goes, it looks a little bit like Jack, but it's definitely not Jack. And I'm like, okay, obviously I've hit a brick wall here, as you do with Peter. Like, he wanted to talk about what he wanted to talk about.
He didn't want to talk. He wanted to drone and lecture. While
exactly. He wanted to talk. He wouldn't listen. But, back to the last episode that I reviewed, it was a very eloquent dissertation on the Demiurge. And for myself, it answered some questions and brought up some more. And I don't know if tonight's the night to bring up the more questions or another night is better. You tell me, Douglas.
Oh, feel free to bring up more questions. But first, I'll simply reinforce what we said about Peter's reaction to photographs. I was brought a photograph by George Edward Knight of Michael Aquino firing a bazooka. Of course, Michael Aquino was not firing the bazooka. He was simply holding it in a pose and smiling and voguing. He was voguing with a bazooka. And when George Knight presented this, Peter Moon said, "That's Photoshop. That's fake." And I said, "No, it's not, Peter. I have that actual photograph in my files." And then, of course, when Jameson Reese found a photograph that is now totally scrubbed from the internet of Adolf Hitler with Jesse Owens, the first thing Peter Moon said was, "That's Photoshop. It's a fake." And he wouldn't just say this casually. He would say it adamantly and emphatically, as if he were personally triggered or threatened every time an actual historical photograph was presented. So, I mean, he was triggered by what you showed him about Jack Parsons, and then he responded also with almost like lecturing down to you about, I can't remember. What did it trigger out of him? Do you remember? Do you recall?
So, I forget, but I screenshot it for you.
Yes.
And copied and pasted so you can see the response. This is 2021.
Yeah, was that the time? Was that the time he was saying, "Oh, I get some friends of mine always send me these links to things and with no context,
yes.
and I have to decipher them and I doubt they're real." Like, he went on a whole tirade one time. I don't know if that was you, Aaron, but
it very possibly was.
It was adjacent to that.
It very possibly was. And for me, I mean, you can't find anything positive on Jack Parsons.
Thank you.
and then the reason, now who knows if he was killed or not, but
no, he was
if he
definitely
was-
assassinated. Believe me, I'd
So-
stake my reputation on it.
and that whole story was because he was such an a-hole, he wouldn't play ball with the local authorities and help as an expert in a case. Like, he was just being a dick. He was
No,
always a
well,
dick.
it was worse than that. At that point, he was a traitor to his nation. He had sold military secrets to Israel. So we know.
Oh, so there we go, right? Right back
Yes.
to Peter's hot button, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Oh, Douglas, his hatred. What did he say about his something?
He said his hatred of the Jews will be his downfall.
I mean, really?
In audio, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you. I'm not. When I say really with that tone of voice, it's not to Aaron.
Yeah.
It's to
Yeah.
it's to posthumously to Peter. I'll let you know one thing. My dreams last night were extremely strange, and I would say just as hectic in the sense that it didn't really feel like I got rest from sleeping. So it was like I slept but didn't sleep because the dreams were so intensively, taking so many emotions. The dream was Peter attempting, we mean Vinnie Barbaric, Peter Moon, attempting to perform Tai Chi. It was some kind of celebration, some kind of Asian celebration, very colorful, and all of the Oriental regalia abounded. And in the middle of that, Peter Moon trying to showcase his Tai Chi, but he kept collapsing. That doesn't do it justice. Basically, I've seen people who have heart failure. When you have heart failure, you cannot stand up for a long period of time. You don't just collapse or crumple, you fall. And I mean, like, you BAM! Like, you, to the point where every time you do that, you're breaking a nose, you're cracking open your skull. This is what he kept doing. He kept, trying to go through these Tai Chi motions, which was in his letter. Healing is motion. He ended that with this claim, like now he was going to ascend to new heights of movement, which he actually said he blamed, maybe my condition is based on not doing my colon exercises in Tai Chi, which I guess is something akin to twerking or something like that. But anyhow, so he was trying to do the Tai Chi, but just kept, BAM! Just kept,
he was so out of it when I talked to him when he was out of it.
Yeah.
He said, I knew this was going to be a problem. This whole project is a distraction from my Qigong. And I can tell you emphatically from knowledge and experiential knowledge that his Qigong was not that evolved.
Thank you.
So that's that.
I mean, seriously. I mean, honestly, and not only that, but then to say that, really, I mean, what are you going to do? Spend all day? Join a monastery if you're going to spend all day.
Yeah, and the whole bizarrety of it is, like, he kept saying, like, insinuating that it was like Doug's pressure making him do this project. Like, as far as I remember, he kept he was the one who wanted to do the project.
That's right.
From what I remember.
And we gave him a year off.
And you even gave him a year off.
Yeah, he pursued Douglas and the project extremely so. But if you gentlemen recall, I suffered several days before yourselves.
Yes.
And I had nights of sleep with no sleep. So yes, I suffered a similar thing. It just seemed to be a few days before everyone else.
Yes. Well, you were the immediate target of his ire, and
well, yeah, I did write some scathing words and tell him the truth because I don't know any other way.
Well, honestly, there was nothing you said that was callous or
no, it was heartfelt. Everything I wrote was hoping that he would, turn the other cheek, so to speak, and fight back. But you can't. Once you're possessed of something like that because you submitted yourself, you can't turn back. You've submitted yourself.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And so in my dream, he kept hitting the ground hard to the point where each one was a broken nose, a cracked open skull, and I finally, for reasons, I guess, of social embarrassment, helped him to a hospital bed, albeit there was no life support. Important point in the dream.
Yeah, and that makes sense because now the hospital supplies are short. But let's just recap two things. Just again, hindsight. I remember so specifically when he went into the dream And now I can look back and say I think this was poetic license because he was trying to sell you on more projects.
Yes.
Where he talked about he met your mother in a dream.
Well, I don't think he was lying when he said, I got to get out of the stream because she's going to fucking kill me.
And he knew he had to leave the dream or he would die. I think that's very telling because your mother was going to kill him because she knew his true purpose. Yeah. And then reviewing the episode on the Vox Arca from 2 years ago with the leather-bound cover and the silver teeth, which was very stylish for something that's so dramatic. He literally said, I'm understanding that this isn't my thing. This is Douglas's thing. I'm just happy to have Douglas in my life. And it's the Vox Arca is not my toy to play with. Yeah. And to reference it such a way is extremely revealing. And I think that tells a lot about his personality. He was seeking knowledge, specific knowledge, and he played the long game, and he got the knowledge he sought. And from what I've seen, and this is kind of hopeful because he got the knowledge he sought, and it blew back at him.
He consumed him.
And it blew back at Asheville. And it blew back at the people that were wielding the knowledge in an unholy way. Yeah. So if there is a little bit of justice in all this chaos, we can find it here and find the center of the storm and find a little bit of peace and repose in that.
Yes. Thank you. Beautifully said. And of course, and we're all still contending with the collateral damage, and the nation will be contending with the collateral damage for quite some time to come. People who suffered Katrina, well, Katrina hit them for the rest of their fucking lives. There are people who never recovered from Katrina and had to relocate completely, and the same with this hurricane.
And that was the beginning of the inflation. Yeah. So when Katrina hit, so everything is spaced out based on need, and there's algorithms for it. And the supply and demand, or I watch Trailer Park Boys a lot. Mm-hmm. I love that show. It's a Canadian show about a trailer park. Mm-hmm. And Ricky mispronounces phrases all the time, and he calls it supply and command. But it really is supply and command. And when Katrina hit, houses that were under contract all over the U.S. doubled in price within a few months because all of the building material supplies were diverted to the disaster. And that's what's going to happen again. So this is once again going to add to the massive inflation in the U.S. It's going to add to the supply chain disruption that COVID started. So it's going to be a lot of collateral damage. And again, we'll all have to deal with it.
Thank you.
And that's just life. But back to before I retreat
into the gentle night.
Into the gentle night. If you can call these nights gentle. The last episode I found very enlightening, and
thank you.
It answered some questions, but it brought up some
others.
Yes,
what were the others?
Well, there's something that I've been trying to navigate, and I think it will take a while to do so, but with your help maybe a little bit more quickly. All of the horrible things that Aquino did, and the Montauk Project, and everything gets blatantly, obliquely labeled Satanism. But it's not all Satanism. It's occultism as a general rule. Mm-hmm. And I don't like the fact that the peacock angel gets mislabeled as the issue for all of these things. So are these people worshiping the peacock angel? I don't think they are when they do these horrible things, but yet he takes the brunt of the negative look of it all. So is he mislabeled in all this? Where is the line that they cross? Do they start by trying to worship him and sacrifice to him? And when does he stop accepting their sacrifice? And when do they move on to the demiurge? Is there a way to define it?
Yeah, to define it for you and answer your question, all of this is answered simplistically, really. First off, understand that when Lucifer fell to earth, this was all part of the cosmic process that most people interpret as something that they need to take a side on. But that's like saying I need to take a side on how a hurricane like Helene, which is in this case supernatural, not just natural. The way it's perceived through our filter and our experience, because we know more than the average person. This is the nature of the occult. The nature of the occult is forbidden or occulted knowledge, that which is hidden from others. What's hidden from others was the source point of this hurricane was a very powerful black book, or a series of black volumes that Peter got a hold of through Maria de Andrea, that he then proceeded to use and abuse as his version of the Vox Arca, something that he hoped he would ultimately acquire through causing an earthquake in San Francisco, which did happen, albeit it did not impact myself at all, and by triggering the storm that would kill Brooke Gibson. This appears to be, from my own experience, two of his major objectives, which provides to you the insanity of a man pressing a nuclear button, which is his whole thing about the Vox Arca, not my toy to play with. That's like referring to the nuclear button that's carried in the nuclear football around on handcuffs by a rotating member of each of the major service branches, so that the president can launch a nuclear war, and referring to that as not your toy to play with. That's the level of insanity at which Peter was operating. But he had gotten away with murder of his parents, that he alluded to quite bluntly on my show, where he warned his parents they would die if they didn't stop attacking his Scientology. And then they died in an explosion that Brendan Zogit could forensically prove was technically impossible. They were in an old lead sled type of car that blew up, which those cars simply do not do. All of this is not to evade the topic, but just as context. So understand that when it comes to the peacock angel, his falling was part of God's creation. As I said before, the way the demiurge was viewed by the Gnostics was that God simply exists, but the will to create is actually the demiurge. So they created kind of like a subset of godhood. And as for the peacock angel, he rules the earth that was created. And therefore the demiurge cannot act with impunity on earth, because that would trigger a war in heaven. Basically, the peacock angel is the dynamic of Malkuth, the world of action, the realm of action, and kingship, the Game of Thrones. So when it comes to the peacock angel is, in a very real sense, that which must be knocked down if you wish to assume the rule of the earth. So this is what they're aiming at, and this is why, as well, being a god of the earth, the peacock angel had to create his own people, the Yazidi. And just so people understand, the Yazidi people are one of the most important population bases in the world. They are the tether, the anchor of the peacock angel. They suffer constant persecution, yet somehow survive. We don't need to sell anyone except an idiot who's in complete denial, or some brainwashed fool who thinks that Islam is a religion of peace. We don't need to sell the rest of you on the violence of Islam. And understand that the Yazidi have existed in the midst of Islam for millennia. How do they even survive? And the fact is, they're protected by the peacock angel. This brings us back to the co-author of Mind War, Paul Vallely. General Paul Vallely is a co-religionist of Michael Aquino. General Paul Vallely is the co-author of Mind War. General Paul Vallely took credit for establishing ISIS, the terrorist organization whose major purpose, per their own version of a set of standing orders, their, shall we say, mockery of a constitution, was to destroy the Yazidi people completely, to annihilate them from the face of the earth, and therefore annihilate all worshippers of Lucifer. For those of you who don't know, the Yazidi are so persecuted in the Muslim world that the largest Luciferan church in the world cannot be in any Islamic nation. It's in the Christian nation of Armenia, the oldest Christian population on earth, the first to convert to Christianity when Noah's Ark landed on Ararat. So the Armenians, the oldest Christians in the world, harbor the largest church to Lucifer in the world, the Church of the Yazidi people. In order to worship at their own church to the peacock angel, the Yazidi have to leave the Muslim world and go to Armenia. And this is because the ancient Christians, the people who knew of these entities like the Demiurge, the Armenians, understand the importance in the cosmic ecology of Lucifer. Lucifer does God's work. The devils and demons do God's work. Every time one of you is corrupted, every time one of you suffers rape, abduction, a horrible crime, an acid attack that disfigures you for life, someone who maims you for no reason other than gratuitous sadism, the children who are trafficked. Ultimately, this is all the work of God, because these devils, these demons that compel these people to do what they do, so they create more demons, people who are so toxically disfigured, internally if not externally, to the point where they damage others and the cycle of violence continues. This is all part of the composting of the human condition, where their souls are damned, but it's not eternal. They recycle. And it takes, for what seems like eternity, it may as well be an eternity for the people who suffer this, the souls who suffer this. But in the end, this is why there exists the good things on earth. None of these flowers that blossom above the soil would exist without shit, or the fertilizer, or the horrible carrion creatures that crawl beneath the dirt that never see the sunlight. But those flowers that blossom from the rays of the sun are a result of the works of those carrion feeders. Those devils, those demons, those horrible entities that do everything they do are just doing what they're supposed to do. Do you hate dung beetles? Do you hate those worms that feed on the cadavers of the dead? Do you hate corpse lice? That would be quite a misinvestment of your energies. It's a misinvestment of your energy to hate the devils and the demons. They're in that compost heap that recycles everything back to nature and creates that which is beautiful yet again. And you don't want to play with them. You don't go rolling around in the compost heap because you're going to catch ringworm. You don't go playing with the devils and demons because you'll catch something worse. Nevertheless, in Africa, where they're closer to the earth, much more visceral in their working with the dung beetles. It was in Egypt that the dung beetle became representative of reincarnation, life after death, the gods themselves. And Egypt is, of course, geographically African. The Africans understand the demons to be agents of retributive justice. In their case, they could almost be your friend. They will stand shoulder to shoulder with you, side by side, to fight the anti-gods, the Edomites, which Peter Moon, alias Vinnie Barbaric, now serves, along with Richard K. Cole Jr., Stephen Outram, and the people who sponsored him and convinced him to, do what he always did, act as an asset, set me up for ambush after ambush in every single interview. There was nothing productive that ever came of Peter. But of course, I had no choice but to work with the enemy. I've been working with the Edomites all my life. We do have the manuscript. We'll do what we can with it. And
I would say that's positive.
Indeed.
Just getting that.
It's a victory. It is.
It really, truly is.
Thanks to you. Yes. Aaron Tice, of course, is on the side of the angels. And that's not to flatter him. Rather, Aaron Tice has continued to pursue knowledge. He's continued to pursue a kind of enlightenment as opposed to empowerment. And for that reason, we were able to accomplish what we did. That and the divine intervention of Malik Dauj, who throttled Peter to toss it out to Aaron in a state that still worked in our favor. He did not give Aaron the last several chapters. I had those, and we're able to now try and piece together something greater than what's even available now. But at least, until we revise and rewrite the book so it does have the magic in it, not the recipes of the spells, but the science of magic as a philosophy, so that you can better understand the context in which my life story, the narrative of my life story was writ, has unwoven. But when it comes to what we're dealing with in terms of Malik Tausch, the Peacock Angel, What was Dr. General Paul Vallely's objective with ISIS? They emptied all the prisons of North Africa and the Middle East, gave all the men from the emptied insane asylums that they recruited them from, as well as the prisons that they freed them from, literally gave orders to the local authorities to set them free, gave them all machine guns, and turned them loose against the Yazidi people. They attempted to exterminate the Yazidi people because in that way, Lucifer, the peacock angel, would no longer be tethered to the earth, and they felt that they could then bargain with the peacock angel, force the peacock angel into binding and servitude. That was the intent of Paul Vallely, and Michael Aquino articulated that to me long ago when Michael Aquino told me that the Arab Spring would someday be unleashed. Remember the Arab Spring. This was something that was supposed to be a culmination of history as imperative as the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of communism. And the Arab Spring brought us ISIS, terrorism, insanity, and the attempted extermination in its latest manifestation of the Yazidi people. So all of this shows you that the true evil are the Edomites. Satan, of course, is a different concept, and that conflates with Seth. Seth is the god of the darkness, the desolation, the desert, and pestilential foreigners, and Seth was defeated by the god Horus. They portrayed this quite well in the movie Gods of Egypt, which the cult of Seth spent enormous amounts of money on to make certain it never succeeded at the box office with a counter-campaign against it, as well as in the movie M:ENFALL, produced by Becky Elal, who was a man who helped me learn about illustration. Becky Elal produced the film Immortal, recommended to anyone, about the god Horus, and again, that never saw the light of day in American movie theaters because of the campaign by the Temple of Set against it, because it insulted their god, Sethan. Brendan Zogid, give us a little bit about Sethan so that people know the difference between Satan and Lucifer, the peacock angel. Summarized as much as possible, of course.
Yes, I mean, just the names themselves will give it away. Like, Set is the enemy of the sun, as in sunset. It's the fall of the sun itself. So it brings darkness, it brings ignorance. It's always at war with the light. And it only ever united with his brother, the sun, Osiris, the light of the world, in order to defeat the anti-god Apophis, or this kind of dark force that was beyond even the gods.
Thank you.
So this being, Seth is like this, he's the usurper, it's this Lokian energy, this very deceptive energy. He lied to his brother Osiris about, he built him a box to live in as a gift. And the minute he tried on this box, this coffin, sarcophagi, studded in gold and jewels, he locked his brother in and cut him to pieces and scattered his body and usurped his throne. So that's like the Setian energy. But then you go to the Luciferian, that is the light bringer, the Lucifera, the angel of light. And that being is more intellect. It's like the sharpness of the intellect itself. And that is different than this Setian energy in the sense that it's not used to deceive, it's actually used to blind. People that aren't ready. If you're ready for it, then you can use it properly. But that takes a lot of knowledge. It's almost similar to the Shiv energy. It's like the power of Shiv itself is the destroyer, but it's this illumination. It's the third eye. It's the eye of Sauron, if you will. So it can see everything, but it's not going to, it's not going to use kid gloves on you or go lightly if you can't handle it. So that's why it's perceived as like this more, it's perceived as a negative, but it's just because most people cannot handle that thing.
Yes.
So there you go.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And God knows, it sounded like he was in a wind tunnel, probably. The fans.
Yeah, I'm in a wind tunnel. There's also some other people in it. So.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's amazing you said what you said without disturbing them.
Oh no, there's no one else in here.
Okay.
I disturbed whatever entities were living in here.
Yes. And
But anyways,
and understand again, as we've seen here, the difference between Satan and Lucifer, and yet Satan did stand with Horus against Apophis, which is representative of the anti-godly energy, the devourer in the sense of all things and everything. And hopefully that puts things in context. Aaron, is that satisfactory for now?
Oh, it's extremely satisfactory. And if you'll indulge me for 2 minutes, I'll just tell a brief story.
Please. Take your time.
As an homage to my friend and teacher who is no longer with us, Red Elk.
Yes.
He taught me about Lucifer. And this is in the Native American culture, so it may not fit with everybody's cosmology, but it's still a beautiful story. And he told this story of how in the true Native traditions, they're told to find the beginning, and they have to ask 3 times and wait till they get the true story. So the elder will teach the younger, but they will wait until they acquire the true story through diligent asking and receiving. And he would always say, if you ask God 3 times sincerely and truly listen, you'll get the real answer, but you have to ask 3 times. And the story was, God existed alone and started to create things. And one of the beings he created was Lucifer, and Lucifer was more or less his best friend. 2 sides, 2 different sides of the same coin. The universe doesn't exist one without the other. And Lucifer helped him and actually took over creation. He created many of the animals. He created female in all its beauty and glory.
Yes.
And he took great pride in that. And as Douglas filled in the holes, talking about the early humans who were telepathic in communication and not really of free will, they were given directives telepathically from God. Forgive me for butchering this, Douglas. I haven't.
You're doing it well enough. You're doing it well enough when you speak of the bicameral mind.
Yeah, the bicameral mind. It wasn't enough for God, and as friends discuss things, God told Lucifer, I want man to have free will. I don't want them to have to worship me. And Lucifer, for many, many millennia, whatever it was in heaven's time, said, let me do the job for you. Let me do this for you. We're friends. And God said, no, this task will destroy you. And finally, as only friends admit to accept each other's needs, he let Lucifer take the task of giving man free will. Now, in some, and Brendan can go into greater detail on this, but in some cultures, Lucifer is heralded as the hero because he gave man free will. But in giving man free will, Lucifer became jealous, perhaps, and realized he was worthy of more accolades or worship than he was getting. And there comes a very simplistic version of part of the fall from grace. If there was a fall from grace, it's all part of the divine culture. But that is the story he told. They were best friends, and Lucifer volunteered for the task of giving man free will. And Lucifer still now holds a very high position, and it seems he stands alone holding back these extremely hubris and greedy motherfuckers, yes, for lack of a better term. I really don't know how to describe it, but that was the story Red Elk told, and that's the story in the natives, the Native Americans, and their Bibles have long since been eradicated. They were written on leaves, and they're all gone now. Maybe there's one in existence, but you know what's happened to the Native American race. They've been eradicated, and they're so subject to trauma and addictions because of what's been done to them over generations. So an homage to Red Elk, an homage to the fact that Douglas just summed up an incredible story in just a few minutes. Brendan added wonderful details to it, and a little bit of a positive note to end this 2 weeks of extreme chaos on. And we'll all send our prayers to those innocents impacted by this terrible storm, and we'll support each other and discuss the higher level of being. And SliwoLAR.
Yes. Well, we love you dearly, and stay safe and be well. Brendan, you were going to say as well?
Yes, so we've passed the churning of the eclipses of Rahu and Ketu of the lunar nodes. So tonight, this very second marks the passing of the final eclipse of the year. So, and that was the churning we just experienced. So it is now officially the first night of the goddess, the Navratri season, when the celestials are at balance. The sun and the moon are going to be moving into this balanced state that happens twice per year. So things are going to, continue on an upward trajectory of evolution and prosperity. It's just, there has to be the yin and the yang. There has to be this up and down churning for anything to happen. There's always a churning around an axis, and the celestial axis is real. Everything churns around the world tree, Yggdrasil, the U, the sacred U of divine. So things will happen and continue to happen, but we're looking for a little bit more, looking forward to a time that's a little bit more balanced. So that's the good news here.
Yes. And on another positive note, I think tonight's episode, for the part that I was here,
Yes.
not one person was interrupted, shut down, or rudely spoken to.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's much different, when you're sharing with friends than when you're dictating your will, as Peter was. So on that note, we try to leave on some positives, and everybody can be uplifted with some hope, and continue to send prayers to everybody who's been impacted. It's going to be, it's not going to be easy to recover from such tragedies because the supply chain is so fragile, but we can all endure.
Yes. Thank you. Love you dearly. Share our love with your own loved ones, and blessed be thy slumber and sweet be thy dreams. Okay.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for everything. I'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it. And that was
Good night.
Aaron Tice. Yes.
Bye, Aaron.
Yeah. So that was Aaron Tice, and I no longer need to speak of Sky Books. I do forewarn people, this has nothing to do with any animosity towards Vinnie Barbaric, who one person in the chat did ask if Vinnie Barbarino, the character on Welcome Back, Kotter, a gang member of the Sweat Hogs, was inspired by the name Vinnie Barbaric. They all kind of sound alike out there on the East Coast, the Northeast. These names, they all kind of have these Mediterranean rooted etymologies. But when it comes to Vinnie Barbaric, who disguised himself as Peter Moon, the boy band he had a crush on back in high school, he's basically Skybooks USA, and always claimed that everything he wrote was science fiction. And he, of course, is not someone to buy the books from, not because I'm trying to deprive him, simply because I dislike him. He physically mails his orders. If you order from Sky Books, you're not going to get anything because he is no longer physically capable of mailing your order. So if you will, go ahead and hit Amazon for the Roswell Deception till we revise and rewrite that, because that's in my name, as is the Vampirology book, which I always knew he was lying about when he said, "Oh, we'll do that next. Yeah, that'll be right after this book." Aaron says, "Thank you all. Many prayer hands. May the spirit in all things that moves through all things sustain you all." Aho. Excellent. And dear Heather Holman has joined us, presumably having conquered what was keeping her, she couldn't hear anything or she couldn't say anything. Heather, let us know.
I had no audio.
Okay. Yes, well, we hear you.
I can hear.
Yeah. So tell us.
Sorry, what?
Oh, he said, well, we can hear you now, and I'm glad that you can hear us. So, by all means, catch us up on everything going on with yourself. Are you married yet?
No.
Okay. To Vinny.
We set the
You're
date.
Vinny.
Yeah, we already have an anniversary, so we're just going to get married on our anniversary.
Oh, great. When's that?
Yeah. I think November 11th.
Oh, okay. How cute. That's adorable. Armistice
Yeah,
Day.
it's the Marine Corps birthday.
Yes, I know. I try and forget that. So but of course it's cute. That's adorable. And
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the 10th.
oh, it's the 10th, the birthday eve day of the Marine Corps. Yes. And we're all together now. And Nemo, you had some questions about this individual, but before we go to this individual in the rings of Saturn, dearest Heather, share with us something else. There must be other adventures you've been participating in, other things you might want to bring to our attention.
I always get so full of ideas when I'm not around, you know. And then when I jump on, I get like stage fright or something. I can't think of what I wanted to say.
Never you care. It's always like that for everyone. We're all like that. Anytime
and I want to mention one thing that one time that Peter said that I thought was kind of strange, and he says that people think that they're going to have like be on a fraternity level with you, and they're wrong. It's like, I don't know, because I think that you're pretty fraternal.
Thank you. You're cute. You're adorable. I love it. Yeah. Mwah. And yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, well, you remember, Peter is just a piece of shit. And he was telling everybody, basically he would get on air and try and scare everybody away. And he was pulling a Jambo the Reese monkey, or Jameson Reese, or like any of these other assholes. They were just here to revolt everybody, get everybody disgusted, and drive them away. For those of you who don't know what Heather Holman is referring to, Brendan Zogia in particular remembers this. I'm certain Nemo does as well. Aristides might not have been listening for long enough, but probably caught elements of it, where Peter Moon would say, "Don't go near Douglas, ladies! Don't go near Douglas if you're a female and you want to start a relationship with Douglas. Just don't. Just don't." Yeah.
Did he actually say that? What a cock blocker.
Well, he's an idiot. Yeah. Brendan, you must remember this. Speak of it, how Peter would say this, because he wanted me all for himself. He
was closeted.
Well, I usually just, by then I tuned him out. I mean, I don't even consciously remember that, but I know he said stuff like that. Because,
yes,
he would he would straight up tell all of us, like, be careful dealing with Douglas.
Yeah.
You know, as if he was normal or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Heather, wait, you heard what I said, Heather. Did he not say those exact words? Ladies, you can't get intimate with Douglas. Don't even try.
No, I've never heard him say that before.
Oh, really? It's on record multiple times.
He tried to pull like the spy. It was like a spy film. Like, oh, he's too dangerous. You know, they'll use you against him. So, was that his angle?
Oh, it was any angle he could think of. He was just, ladies, stay away. Ladies, stay away. It's because, you know.
Don't get near Douglas. That's my job.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. And would try and tell ladies, you're in for nothing but grief. If you go near, you're in for nothing but grief. It didn't matter what angle anyone interpreted it as. His message was stay away. He's mine. Stay away. He's mine. So it's part of how. Anyhow, there we have that. I think the basic parameters are understood by everyone. He was possessive and he was jealous. And it all came
flooding out during the sake episode.
Thank you.
I was like legitimately grossed out, and I had to tell Doug, like, dude, you gotta like hit him with the newspaper, you gotta hit him with the anti-horny cannon because this shit's fucking gross.
Thank you.
He was like imagining you, like literally saying this out loud, like imagine him dressed like this, you know. It was bad.
Tell him. It was like he started talking about what he wanted to see me dressed in. In terms of cross-dressing and lingerie, correct?
Something like I just like was cringed out. Like, that's shit you don't reveal on air, you know. Like just do it between yourself.
Completely fucked in the head.
Yeah, don't wish that on me. I'd hate to be talking to him personally
about. That's what I was saying. Is like I just do it to Doug. Just cringe out Doug. Don't cringe out all of us.
Well, at least it provided eyewitnesses to what I had to deal with. So that was important. And what was the other thing when we bring that up? I mean, that pretty much says it all. But and it was continuous. It would resurface at times, and this is part of the. Yeah, he was. It's very hard to find anything redeeming, and like Aaron's,
it's almost like he bought the sake just to impress you. That's
Thank you.
was trying to tell you. I was like, this dude doesn't drink, but the second he gets sake, he's like, did you know it's made from rice wine, Douglas?
Yeah.
You know, it's, like he's trying to hit on that. It's bizarre. It was bizarre. Yeah, who doesn't know? That's what I was saying. I was like, who doesn't know that? And this is really weird.
Oh my
It's
god!
like really rapey. This is like some rapey shit.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Bill Cosby stuff.
Yeah, I wish Amy Como were still with us because she was the one he took it out on. Remember? It was like with kind of like he was swatting her.
No, I don't remember. Actually.
Oh God, it
That's
was
strange because I remember hearing him. Oh, she's such a great woman. And
he
like,
said
did
that.
he say bad things about her now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He said that later. And but originally, when he first met Amy, she wouldn't talk about it at the beginning of the episode. I asked her, "Come on, bring it up, Amy." When he was talking about the rice wine, she just said, "I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. I want to move ahead." That was he like came down on her like a pile of bricks, and it was shouting at her, and she handled it remarkably well. She handled it remarkably well, and she says that's because she's dealt with crazy, violent people all her life, which she has, crazy, violent, drugged-out people. But the way he described it was this. He went to a restaurant with Paula, and at some point, Paula just slammed her fist down on the table and said, "You old fucker, I drink, everyone around me drinks, and we're sick of your bullshit where you've got this elitist attitude where you don't drink and you're better than all of us." And he said, "I'll drink." And then she warned him, it's a Japanese restaurant. She said, "It's sake. This isn't beer. This isn't wine. You've got to sip it. Sip it." And he just didn't listen to her and and we're
like
talking
a shot.
Yeah, like a shot of whiskey. And so then the Japanese looked at him like he was insane, and he kept ordering more. It's like that scene in Shogun where the idiot who becomes known as Anjin-san, Mr. Pilot, because nobody could pronounce his name in Japanese. His name was Blackthorn, but you can't pronounce R in Japanese. So they go Blackthorn, finally just said, fuck it, call him Pilot. Anjin-san, Mr. Pilot, because he navigated the ships. They're all looking at him. There's a scene in Shogun where he keeps ordering more sake. And he's just, and of course they, pump him until he collapses. This is what happened in that restaurant. So they just kept giving him these things. He kept doing the whiskey shop bullshit. So by the time he came on the show, he was pig-faced fucking drunk. And that's why he's...
Yeah, and then Paula wheeled him in, strapped him in his chair.
Yes!
Just so she didn't have to deal with him like he was like it was like a play date. Like, you go do your show while I go, shoot guns
and fuck other
dicks.
Guys. Yeah, fuck other guys with dicks at work. Yeah, because he was all...
Shoot blanks.
Yeah, thank you. He was
her age.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. No disrespect to her. I don't blame her.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
But I'm just saying that's what happened. She sat him down so she could sneak out the front.
Yeah. And then we were stuck with him. Thank you, Paula. We were stuck with him when he starts humping my leg. Then he's like, "Doug! Why don't you try dressing like this sometime? I'd like a little lace." And
wow.
Oh my God. Okay. So there we
You
go.
should have just said, "Oh, come out of the closet, Peter," just to make you gay.
Yes. I mean, seriously, it would have made the world so much. He would have been so much better as a human being. And these guys just can't. They can't contend with their homosexuality, and they keep projecting it on myself, that Stephen Outrib guy, along with Richard K. Cole Jr., but especially Stephen Outrib. If anyone remembers, Stephen Outrib was the guy who made a Wikipedia page about me. Before they said no Wikipedia pages are allowed on Douglas Dietrich, he was the first one to make one, and he connected it to hundreds of these gay organizations and networks. and transgender, gender bender affiliations and all the rest of that, and as if that were some kind of negative, even though it had nothing to do with me, and he was just trying to insinuate that somehow I was, I guess, top dog in the world of alternative lifestyles. It goes to show you the energy he was expending on researching this. Compiling this list of the gay who's who in terms of affiliations and organizations, and then trying to connect all of them to Douglas Dietrich so that he would forever brand me as being part of this world of gayness. And it was like, okay, like, is that supposed to be offensive? Is that supposed to be like, so what? It's like,
Yeah,
just
was he 10 years old, like school children? You're gay.
yeah.
You're
Thank you.
gay."
It was that taken to pathological levels of magnitude that are simply unimaginable to anybody who's functioning in some socially recognizable fashion. He's stark raving mad. And but then again, they took the whole thing down anyway. Probably because the gay communities all started freaking out, like, "Oh, don't link us with Douglas Dietrich." That would have been funny. That's so something was going on with that. Well, a number of things. We can only speculate in some areas, but definitely, yeah. If he only came out as gay, Stephen Outram would just be a happy guy, and they call it gay for a reason. Jesus Christ, and he would be enjoying himself instead of tripping off me. Sorry I turned you on, Steve. And say, and same with Peter. Yeah, so the dream that I had last night, just to give all the gory details, Oriental regalia, big celebration, like Harvest Festival, all the rest of that, and I was dressed up in my usual attire, but Peter was trying to impress everybody with his Tai Chi moves, but just kept smashing to the floor. Like I said, it collapse doesn't do it justice. When somebody has heart failure, they simply fall like a ton of dead weight. And
just dead weight, yeah.
Yeah, they're just, bam!
You'll break your face if you land on your face and shit, yeah.
Thank you, and that's what he was doing in the dream, breaking his nose, cracking open his skull, and it was intense. It was intense. It was painful to watch.
I'd just be laughing.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. I don't want to go into what I say secretly with when I'm talking to Brendan, Aristides, and Aaron Tice. I've expressed such. Yes, I don't want to make myself sound.
I'm just saying
bad.
me.
Yeah,
like if it was me.
Yeah. Believe me, I'd be right there with you, dude. I'd be rolling. Yeah, and there's an element of that, but I guess it was out of public embarrassment. Like I said, I brought him to a hospital bed. This was all dream state, people, just so you understand. I brought
it's
him.
not logical.
Yeah, it's logical enough. There's nothing I said that is actually.
Well, it's not always logical. Just depends different.
Yeah, but in his case, that's probably happening. You can imagine that idiot trying to do his fucking Tai Chi in the state he's in now, and that's
realistically, you wouldn't go help him put him on a fucking medical bed. Just let him die.
That's true. That is true. I would not only just probably vacate the area so I wouldn't be held responsible.
Just get out of there.
Yeah. The temptation would be to spit on him or piss on him. Honestly, I'm trying not to incriminate myself any further in terms of looking like a bad guy, but at any rate, so in the dream when I got him to the hospital bed, like I said, there was no life support, and he was extraordinarily confused. Imagine that. What's going on? What's happening? It's like it's like that, and it's pretty much where I woke up from that particular dream. But it was intense enough where it was very energetic in terms of taking a lot of energy. So when I woke up, you don't feel like you were really sleeping. So and I had two more of those types of dreams, but it wasn't about Vinnie Barbaric or alias Peter Moon. It was some other.
Just before you get into that, when he was like falling down and hitting the ground, were the sounds of the parts of his body like very loud and it made you cringe and shit?
Absolutely.
I've had a dream similar to that where I saw a guy got his face caved in and I could just hear that whole sound inside my head of the bones cracking and the blood spilling and all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, you and I share
it's
that.
crazy.
Yeah, you and I share that visual intensity and it is the sign of a creative mind. You have a very creative mind, and you should apply it. You should be writing.
Oh yeah, I should be, but I'm just lazy.
I love it. Yes. Well, stand in fucking line. Why do you think I was working with someone like Peter? I'm the laziest person on earth. It's only lately I've had this, sudden binge of creativity where I actually wanted to write, and it may become hopefully the wave of the future. But there you go. So I once I started that, then Peter became like, he's flooding me with this extraneous material. Oh my God! He wasn't appreciative of my starting to write. I can tell you that. I think everybody noticed that.
He straight up said you were running him ragged. He's like, and this entity was running me ragged through Doug.
Yes. And like I said, placing the destructive entity on myself after he had summoned it, and well, there you go. So there we have that, and that having been expressed, we're trying to deal with the phone situation as best as we can. Everybody pray for us in that regard, and because that's necessary for me to carry on with my life and regain some modicum of control over my life. How about your communications, Heather? Has your phone been behaving? I mean, you heard what Amy Como said. How's your phone behaving?
Well, with Skype, it's not so good.
Okay. It's good now.
Yeah, right now because it's plugged in.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, it just gets hot sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, your chips are more advanced than Peter Moon's. We were discussing that the other day, Aristides and Brendan and myself. We were talking about how Peter Moon's chips were old. There's one time, an episode in which he said on air repeatedly and robotically, "My implant fell out. My implant fell out."
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you remember that?
I had a great idea, though. Yeah. I thought it was a great idea yesterday when I got it.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about this? Like an effortless way to write a book, because it could be time consuming, but I thought, what if we did a collaboration where like you, Nemo, Brandon, like as a collaboration of all of the topics that are in your book, George would want to do it, and then you put it all together, and then that could be the wave of the future.
Oh, that's called a round.
That's cute.
Yeah, it's cute. It's nice. It's nice, and it's called a round robin author technique. So
a round robin author technique.
Yes, you can look that up. Yeah, so round robin author techniques are where authors will agree to collaborate, and usually it's done in the fashion of basically, I'll write, this, and then you write that, and then we slap it all together, and
holy shit.
Yeah, the results usually, what they used to say, in commercial illustration, we use the term camel, and a camel has two humps, and that would be used as the visual graphic analogy of two collaborators usually produce an ugly thing.
Right.
But with round robin authorship, it becomes even more difficult because, say for instance, you have an on-running novel or a work of fiction, and then you try to have different authors write different parts of it. They actually had this phenomenon common in pulp magazines for generations, where in pulp magazines they had what were called house names. In other words, there were pen names that belonged to no one. They belonged and were owned and copyrighted by the publishing house. So you had a real tough sounding name, Kevin McCormack, for detective novels. And you had some feminine sounding name, Lilac Shay or something like that, for romance novels. And then you would have these round.
So is that what Little Abner is?
Little Abner. Now that's interesting. You bring up the most obtuse historical items. Little Abner was a actual cartoonist who wrote about hillbillies, and it was a graphic. It was a comic strip. What I would call graphic literature, and It had political statements and satire, and it was profoundly insightful, but he also expanded it to include city characters, and it got very involved. It wasn't personally always my taste, especially the city characters. Some of them were supposed to be semi-fictitious. It got very surrealistic at times, and I really certainly did not appreciate it as a child. Sometimes to me it just seemed just plain gross. But other times it had this wholesomeness. It's just hard to describe. Where did you run across this?
Oh, I just knew about it from, my grandpa's thing in Hollywood, being in the World War II.
Right. So, but no, that wouldn't be an example of it. But house names, you'd have different authors take up the house name, but they were supposed to maintain the feel of what was intended. Somebody was not supposed to take the house name intended to write detective stories and start writing romances, or, vice versa. Round robin becomes most problematic when you don't agree to a theme. Say, for instance, let's write a novel, and somebody's a science fiction.
I've seen that with adventure fiction.
Tell us, yeah, examples.
It'll be like a whole series, like warrior birds or warrior pets, but each book is written by a different person.
Yeah, and that can get problems.
The whole theme is overarching theme's the same, but I'm sure each one has its own flavor.
Yeah,
like you said.
Yeah, and that can get problematic. Say, for instance, you're writing a novel, and somebody's a science fiction author, and then another guy's a romance authoress or lady, and usually that's the stereotype, though a lot of romance authors are actually gay guys. And then you have other authors pitch in, and they're all doing their own flavor. It becomes, pretty incoherent pretty quickly. So Heather's away from the keyboard, and it's just us lads now. And we'll take it from here for a little bit. We'll see if George Knight shows up. Oh, Aaron Tice is writing. Continue, Nemo. You were about to say something.
What are your thoughts on that fella I mentioned in direct message?
Yeah, let's read about that.
I already forgot his name.
No worries. I'll read it. And
some guy was fucking pinging me in Discord saying, "Oh, you seen this guy? Check this guy out. Check his work on this book about Saturn and all this shit." And
Okay.
I just saw it. Yeah,
I'll
did a quick look on him. But I want your opinion on. Do you know him? Do you know what he was really involved with and all this other shit?
Well,
Or
unfortunately,
if he was an Edomite cultist.
Unfortunately, I do know of him. I do. So, do you know, this is from Nemo, do you know this man, Dr. Norman Bergrun? He pioneered the methodology of thermal ice prevention design. He is credited with roll stability laws for aeroplanes and missiles. At Lockheed Missiles and Space Company, Bergrun was manager of test planning and analysis for the Polaris underwater launch missile system and evaluated satellite system applications. He written a book on the planet Saturn. And then we get to, the apex of this individual's life, the ringmakers of Saturn. Oh, eye roll. You can't see. So Aaron says, "Thank you for the time. You answered my questions eloquently. I firmly believe all is as it should be." So let me answer him soon enough. Gift us your contributions. Dear Aaron. There we are. And there we go. Into that term. And so when it comes to the ringmakers of Saturn, it is so profoundly unbelievable that I am at a loss for words. I was intrigued by it because it was so outrageous. I wanted to see the books. Now, by the way, he is selling this on the Peter Moon economic model, where he's charging hundreds of dollars for these books. These are like coffee table books full of beautiful photographs of Saturn's rings, which he claims are artificially created by spaceships that only he can see. So we're back to Peter Moon saying there's golden pyramids and golden sphinxes underground in Romania. And then Ian West says, I just got home. And it's like, okay. That's like a child coming up to me saying, I'm going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah, so basically, this guy's just another charlatan.
In my... yeah. Anyhow, so... to go on with what Nemo said, a person I know online mentioned him to me. He seems very interested in his works. I never heard about him, just started looking into him. Is Norman one of those criminal Edomite cultists? Well, more like just a hack who I can't imagine anyone buying his books because they're so expensive, except for the pretty pictures of Saturn's rings. But then you're not going to see what this guy claims is there. Only he sees it because he's out of his mind. If you have any dirt or important info about him, I can relay that info to this other guy boasting about him. What I can say is that I do not see what he sees, and I don't think anyone sees what he sees. There's no one out there who backs up what this guy says. So, yeah, Ringmakers of Saturn, Norman R. Berggruen, and I've heard this guy speak at length, and of course he was on Coast to Coast AM. And he's, you know, you might think he has got some exotic European or Germanic accent. He just speaks like a regular American. He's just some American lunatic, basically. Who's this is what happens. Let's put it this way so that people comprehend. I say this in my book on magic that I'm writing and haven't been able to dedicate a moment to over the past several days. Hopefully that will change once I get my phone and then dedicate maybe the next few weeks to getting my affairs in order and stabilizing my situation, which has truly gone off the rails, and getting myself, integrated into that new program that Amy Como was alluding to, which is concerns Kaiser Hospital experimenting with these immunoboosters, where my allergy or my allergic inflammation caused by dust mites will be cured. And that consists of injecting me full of crushed dust mites once a week. And providing me stimulants so that I won't have anaphylactic shock. You know, I'm doing this for the drugs. But at any rate, such being said, this is going to be interesting, and the point that I'm making, however, is Amy Como. Did you guys hear that? The way I heard it, she said the mattresses were seething with dust mites, not bed bugs, but dust mites. And when she would put her cell phone on the mattress, they would swarm and blanket the cell phone like they were attracted to its warmth or something. Did you guys hear that part?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it was so bizarre.
That's crazy.
That was so fucking bizarre. I mean, dude,
that's not a dust mite.
What is that?
That's something else.
A bed bug.
That's what I kept asking her. Remember I said, are you sure?
Dust mites are like micro, you can't see them with the naked eye.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, how can you see them on your phone?
Well, believe me, in my crypt, the dust mites are rare when they get that big. But believe me, they get big enough where you can see them. They're still small as shit, but you can see them to the point where you smear them. Yeah, they can get that big, but that's only a place like mine. My place is hell on earth. You know,
I thrive in your area.
yeah. My place is hell on earth because it's like heaven for dust mites. Okay, it's like dust mite heaven. But they don't swarm. Okay, that's like I mean, I just have to move if that were the case. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Someone buy a dog and air purifier, clean his air in his home.
Yeah, but I agree with Brendan. Brendan, those are fucking bed bugs. She's got bed bugs. And
yeah, they were bed bugs.
Yeah, those are fucking bed bugs. Bed bugs are attractive.
I want to get rid of those fuckers as quick as possible.
Well, you can't. You can't. I mean, it's like, you just have to move. You have to
that's at her current place? That's at her current place?
That's what she said. Yeah.
There's ways to kill them. Like,
dude, it's like, you may as well just...
I was just going to explain this one method this dude was doing inside an apartment.
Yeah.
He took all of his sensitive, delicate shit out of his room and left his mattress in there, and he increased the heat in there for a certain amount of hours at a certain temperature. and it killed all the bed bugs in his room and the mattress, and he just vacuumed everything.
That's what they pay these companies to do. I highly doubt that any individual could do that on his own, because you need heat. Okay, heat
Yeah,
that
he
only
probably paid someone to do it.
Yeah.
That's what he had done.
Yeah, it requires somebody with special heaters
Without
to do
using
that.
toxic chemicals and shit.
Yeah. They have this other option, but none of this shit really works. I mean, it's like
Yeah, you're just better off getting a new mattress.
yeah, dude, yeah, why? Yeah, just get a new goddamn mattress.
Because your mattress is going to be stained with fecal matter from the bed bugs and all that shit.
Yeah, but beyond that, you have to move. It's just, in the end, there's no hope. I mean, it's a battle you cannot win. You're literally going to have to strip the place down and fumigate it with this heat method and a combination of other powders and toxins to just, make certain it's not worth it. It's not. You might as well burn the building down. People just don't get it. You might as well burn all your.
You're least likely to get them if you don't have any carpet too, just like solid floor.
Well, yeah. In that case, you might as well be living out in the forest, right? You might as well be fuck that shit. I mean, you won't be able to walk around barefoot.
Floor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but you can't walk around barefoot at night. You freeze your ass off, right? Don't you need slippers?
No, I'm fine.
Oh, you're in
I
Australia.
can handle
Well, you're in Australia. Okay, you're not.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I walk around with just pants. I don't even wear a shirt.
Dude, you're in Australia. Yeah, there you go. That says everything. It's hot. Okay.
It's different here.
Yeah. So no, in other
America's hell.
Yeah, America's hell. You'd be like, no, you need. There's a reason carpets exist. Okay. That's Yeah, so in America, the carpets are like a necessity.
Yeah.
But so in terms of the bed bugs, no, they're a nightmare. I mean, I don't even want to talk about it, but I think what Amy's got is bed bugs. Yeah, that would explain a lot. Yeah. It's holy fucking shit. Holy fucking shit. What a nightmare. I would die. Okay, that having been expressed, back to that Rainmakers of Saturn guy. Yeah, no, I said it all. There's nothing more to say about him.
Yeah.
Brendan, maybe you could provide us the occult significance of Saturn. Like, what does Saturn represent? I mean, many people conflate it with Satan.
Yeah, I mean, it is Satan. Like, that force is the same force.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's there, like you said, it's there. Set up by divine for reasons.
Yes.
It plays its role
necessity.
in
the cosmic hierarchy.
Yeah.
Now, Saturn in the Vedic system is known as Shani Dev, and Shani Dev is the being that gives you the repercussions or the karmic blowback of your actions. It is also the same as Kronos, the Lord of Time.
Yes.
So whatever things you do in time are given back to you in time. And that's why it's like a slow moving graha, it goes through the time cycles. It's the Time Lord. It is the Lord of the Ring in that sense.
Yes.
And it's not the bad guy. It's only giving you, as per your actions, what you've done in the past. So people conflate that with like it just being like, it's not sadistic. It's doing it because of stuff you've done previously. And like the analogy with like the warden or something is, or anyone who, like the like the teacher that gives you detention. It's like everyone hates that person, right?
The dean.
But
the dean.
Like, the dean. So, but ultimately it's you that's doing all this. So, you're just getting the repercussions of your actions, but of course everyone's going to hate the person that meters out that situation, right? Just naturally you will not like that person, or no one would. Yeah, just out of human nature. So, but Shani is very important. It's one of the most important grahas. Like, without Shani and the discipline of Saturn, you couldn't get anywhere in life. Like, you wouldn't have anything, and the people that are more Saturnianly disciplined are the people that are so-called successful in our world. They have money, they're more, they match up more with the system that's in place right now because they can like discipline themselves, self-discipline. It's the graha of self-discipline, essentially. So the more of that you have, the more easier time you have here in this kind of matrix, this current timeline, so. So but all the grahas are important, but Saturn has its own flavor. So, and then people that are Saturnian, like they're more darker in general. Like, you know, Doug has some pretty gnarly Saturn. You have your Saturn's in one of the heaviest Aquarian signs. So makes sense.
Yeah, he's talking about my chart, correct? My natal chart.
Your chart. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, yeah, and for those of you who don't remember, again, just for the sake of some context here, Peter Moon, there were basically 3 elements of his simple zodiac, what I would call his astrology. His astrology consisted basically of 3 things he'd always talk about: Mercury, especially in retrograde; Pluto, which he'd speak about.
This is like Instagram shit.
Yes, yes.
Like those chicks on Instagram. Oh, Mercury retrograde.
Yes.
That's what I thought of Peter every time he said that shit.
Yes. Oh my God.
Come on, man.
Like you said, Farmer's Almanac shit that he took. Yeah. Like he's consulting the newspaper. Like somebody consulting the newspaper.
Like, it is like newspaper astrology.
Yes. But the only thing he would throw in was Chirotic, which was obtuse. That most people don't throw in Chiron, which is Sagittarian, the wounded healer, and is the superhero of all the centaurs. But he would throw that in there for some bizarre reason. The wounded healer, doubtless due to the heavy homosexual roots of centaurs in Heraclesian or Greek mythology, and he was probably enamored of that more than anything else. My understanding is that Chiron, mythologically, and this is canon, not hypothesis, actually had sex with Heracles. But there you go with that. Probably that big horse dick is what got Peter all excited. Yes, Chiron, the wounded healer. Yes. So he harped on that a lot. But other than that, it is an important planet as far as I'm concerned, or what could at least be called a dwarf planet. Indeed, I consider it one of the realms of our solar system. So I will articulate that another time, have done so to a degree in writing, though I never added that part into my writing just yet. Again, I'll have to remind myself to add some astrological elements into the book that I'm writing on magic to intersperse between Peter's chapters in our ultimate republication. But we'll try and deal in the near future with just expanding the one we've got out there now, so that people can purchase that on the cheap, get a preview, and just die at the fact that Peter Moon wanted to slap this under between leather binding, and talk about bondage, and charge you, the reader, hundreds of dollars for it. Not that it's not worth it in terms of ultimate contextualization of knowledge in your world, but he's just, he makes
it's worth that from what you gave him, but what he vomited out is just like
thank you.
It's like 6th grader shit. Like,
thank you.
This is the story of Douglas.
And only because I can't avoid telling it. Tell him what he said. Only because I can't avoid telling it.
Yeah, out of just what did he say? Oh man, we have to bring up the quote that it was just so dumb. Basically, he's only telling your story because he has to get to the greater story, the story within the story, behind the story. So you're just like this, like, this like skin tag,
right? Which goes back to him, of course. The story behind the story.
Ultimately, it's all about his god. What is it? What's that guy's name?
Oh, David Lewis Anderson.
Reactor.
Yeah, David Lewis Anderson, the Evanescence motherfucker. Yeah. His fader, it ultimately goes back to him. That stupid, cheesy piece of shit. And not that it's not relevant, but not in the way that he says, because he's trying to glorify the guy as opposed to presenting him as what he really is. That'll be the most difficult chapter, because I'll have to layer that one when I revise the book. But first thing first, we got to get that last chapter in there at all. Oh, for him to have excised, he's such a, oh God, there is nothing positive to say about that son of a bitch. And yes, while he kept collapsing in my dream, I kept, don't think I didn't enjoy it. And I think that that's really happening, because that fucker keeps talking about Tai Chi. go get better Tai Chi. And you know what's going to happen. He's going to get up there. His heart failure is going to cause him, bam! And you know, it's not even a dream. Because my dream really, it's more like, I don't want to sound like Peter Moon, who in his own email said, it was a dream. That wasn't a dream. But this is like a dream that...
Right, it was more like remote viewing. It was remote viewing.
Yeah, thank you.
Your dream or something.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Oh, yeah. And, okay, so that being said...
I remember one time he told me, he's like, circle walking spins the blood, you know? and it spins the blood and restores your blood cells and shit. And I'm like, okay.
Oh.
And then I tried it in the park and people were like, this fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
How many people you see even doing that?
Nobody.
Not even the Chinese do that. Not even the Chinese.
Yeah, exactly. I never
He
seen
just made it up.
people do the shit he
That dude
does.
with no legs just made it up.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a figure eight. Like, the only thing I've seen the Chinese guy do at my park is he does like around the tree, but he doesn't do a figure eight like Pete card.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Everything. By the way, that's Roosevelt Gainey that we're referencing, who was this black African American quote unquote Tai Chi master who Peter Moon was absolutely enamored of, probably because the guy couldn't escape him or his advances because he had no arms and legs and was just a stump sitting in a wheelchair because he could not resist or discipline himself to resist sweets. And he had type 2 diabetes and ate himself on sugars and pies and Faygo to death. For those of you probably out there, the majority of you don't know what Faygo is unless you're followers of Psycho Clown
Did
Posse.
he really drink Faygo?
Yeah, dude. We're talking.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
He deserved everything.
Thank
He
you.
deserved
Thank you.
It's this fucking, it's like this Kool-Aid soda shit that like all these like ICP people like they're obsessed with it. It's like the canonical drink of, it's like the holy water of Insane Clown Posse.
Yes, thank you.
God.
And then they were asking like the lead singer, like, hey, like, did they like sponsor you? And he's like, no, they want nothing to do with me. Like, the company doesn't even want anything to do with them, and they're the only customers they have.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just so people know, he just says that as part of the selling technique. They do sponsor them because I've seen paid commercials. He claims they want nothing to do with them. But
and those guys, I mean, imagine trusting anyone that paints their face and says Insane Clown Posse.
yes.
Like, they can't be trusted.
They're complete fucking retards. I hate them.
Yeah.
Well, be careful.
Did you see that stupid music video they made about fucking pyramids and one of the rappers like, oh, magnets, how the fuck do they work, man? All this shit. Oh,
they're deliberately trying to dumb people down. Like,
they're their
own
kill
agenda.
Them. Oh, scratch that.
Yeah. Yo, by the way, Brendan, what did you say that their own what?
What?
You said something about Insane Clown Posse, like their own something, worst enemy or something.
Their own agenda.
Okay.
Their own agenda, like to dumb people down or whatever.
Yeah, well, they're succeeding in that.
Like, they can't be doing that willingly. I hope not.
All of their fans are just like degenerate white trash scum.
Oh my God.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Basically the rejects. They're like Misfit Island.
Yeah.
Of like every school.
It is. It is. And
every neighborhood.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Faygo, to do it beyond what Brendan said, Faygo is not just one drink. They basically have one drink that theoretically is representative of every state in the Union. It's 100 types of drinks that have 100 different colors. And
they're not drinkable.
Thank you. Each one of these colors is rumored to be a different product of industrial effluvia.
That part's true.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no, that part's true.
And they're all phosphorescent, basically. They all glow in the dark. They're these neon colors.
Like Chernobyl runoff.
It is. Literally. I wish it was a joke. I mean. They look like,
they look like they glow in the dark. They are they don't look like anything you would ever want to put in your body.
Yeah. You get cancer from just drinking one of them.
Yeah, they don't look like something
Yeah,
that.
there's a reason they paint their face. Like they probably have like the worst acne or something.
No, they don't drink that shit. The two insane clown posse, the guys.
They spray it on them. They spray it on them. That's
Yeah.
all they do.
Yeah. The audience may spray it on, but they don't drink it themselves. The insane clown posse people. The audience does. The audience is sucking that shit.
Human cattle. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but for insane clown posse, it's all just shtick. So Fago is like. This is like, just from what we've told you, it's phosphorescent.
And they tried to like ambush that guy on the interview, and they were like, you have, you're reported to have like multi-millions, and he's like, I barely live in a house that's like 500,000.
Oh,
and he's all like methed out, trying to lie about it.
Who?
You know how they can barely lie.
The insane clown posse guy? The insane.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you're saying he's like Ian West?
Yeah, he's like, he talks like him. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he tries to lie, but he's so tripped out that he's so spun out that he can't lie. He's
like the fat one or the short one?
The lead singer, the one that always does the talking.
The fat one,
yeah.
Okay, wait, I don't know if you guys remember this, but do you remember Dr. Phil? Or I think it's Dr. Phil. Yeah, so Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
He had those guys on as the epitome of parental responsibility, believe it or not. So what happened was there was some crazed, maniacal dad who should have been sterilized, like Ian West should be. And this dude wanted to be like Insane Clown Posse. It's a one-man show. And he got dressed up in clown makeup, scared his infant son half to death by, making faces at him and shit. And, said he was like the ruler of the kingdom of evil and was trying to put out music. And so the family was at their wit's end. And we're talking about the wife and his in-laws. Honestly, there's got to be ways to get rid of guys like this, but there's this thing called divorce. But instead, they brought him on Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil just molded his ass, as we used to say, by presenting him his heroes. They always say you never want to meet your heroes. And they just sold him down the river. I mean, they got up on the screen, and Dr. Phil said, "You want to be like Insane Clown Posse, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." This guy said, "Yeah, they're my heroes. I want to be like them." But a one-man show. And then when he brought him on, they were all shitting and pissing all over him about not taking care of his son. But they were presenting themselves as the epitome of responsibility, pyramids of integrity. Yes, and they were like saying, Dr. Phil says, "Tell us how you took care of your kids." And one said, "I put all my money in sending my kids to college." And the other one said, "My son's a patriot. He went to serve in the military. He's doing top secret work. I don't even know where he's at, but he's serving his country." And then like I said, it's all... What was that, Nemo? What was it?
Top secret.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is how they were presenting themselves. And then the guy was like devastated. Of course, like, then they turned on him. Dr. Phil said, "What do you think of this guy's music?" And they said, "It's shit." Yeah. You can tell when someone's got no talent. And they were shitting and pissing all over him. And it was like, dude, were they paid for this? It's like,
it's nearly like it was their idea in a way. We want to do this so we can look good. So we're, children will keep buying our shit and all that stuff. They'll keep having a big fan base.
That's a very astute observation. I never thought of that. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Otherwise, it's just so weird. It's like, why would you care about this son of a bitch?
Yeah.
I didn't like the fucker either, but like, go on.
Yeah, because Dr. Phil, he can't be that dumb enough to think, these guys are just like a good example of how to be a parent or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, oh my fucking god. They're
not
not
just talentless retards who sold their souls to the Khazars to have money and fame.
Damn. Anyhow, let's see now. So Aaron Tice shares this memory. He says, "I have a memory from quite a while ago. Peter said he was doing the current project to get the Ardalect story. In other words, he wanted to get at the Ardalect, which then Peter betrayed on my show when he said, how do I get to Taiwan, Douglas? And it's like, yeah, he wanted to go over there and diddle the Ardalect. He wanted to rape the Ardalect as if the Ardalect hadn't suffered enough in childhood. And you know what somebody wrote me in an email? They said that Peter Moon spoke to Marina Saren about my rape with the same tone of voice that a normal parent would use for talking about how their child won the national spelling bee.
Oh. What a fuckhead,
He said he had this. It was like, hey, Douglas has gotten raped too. Yeah, and he went and it's like, I could see that, and it was worse than that too. It was like there were so many nuances of pathology to his doing. I don't know. Did you hear it, Nemo, when he was doing that with Marina Saren?
I didn't hear that part because I don't like hearing him. So I'm like, yeah.
Oh, it is. Everything about that. That was a Freudian cringe fest of just everything he said. Orgy, orgasm. And he kept saying both. And he kept complaining about himself. I keep saying orgy when I mean to say orgasm, Marina. And it's like, no matter what you're saying, it comes out bad.
Yeah, no, those words should never come out of an old fucking ghoul's mouth like him. Don't ever say sexy, orgasm, or anything about sex. It's not appealing. It's disgusting. Fuck off and die already.
Quietly, no less. Quietly, no less.
We don't want to hear it.
Yes. Okay. So now what we're entering into. Let's take a look at this. We've completed the main objective of tonight's transmission. We got out there a real contextualization of the latest catastrophe to hit America. And we put it in context of what we were dealing with Peter Moon. So let's take a look at the live stream. We're over 3.5 hours. We can wait a little while, see if George Knight comes on. But
see what that bloody guy says? It's fucking ridiculous but funny at the same time.
Which one?
Oh, the bloody raw truth. It's
that
recently
clown.
typed in.
Oh yeah, thank you. That is like, first off, look at the guy's icon. I mean, well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Aristides, Brendan, help me out here. Aristides, you're an engineer. Brendan, you are an anthropologist.
The bloody all-seeing eye.
Yeah, he's got a
blood
That's a question.
Yeah, look at Bloody Raw Truth in the chat. What do you make of this guy? Is he a troll? I think he's a troll. He's just basically a troll. But it's like, I try to treat everyone as if he's just coming from his angle. But it's like, look what he says. So it's a book and not technology. Got you. Douglas, it's not a book or magic. It's military tech. We are not children. I mean, really? Really? And then, or the sun gun / helio beam. Man, this guy's got all the answers. The black book in the military is techniques for constructing weapons that are highly effective in the most harrowing of circumstances, like Black Projects, which receives trillions of funding to this day, all one word. Then, like weather machines. Cartoons are displayed on technology when we started talking about animation. Think about it. So he connects cartoons to technology.
This guy's a loony.
Thank you. Just an idiot.
He's a Looney Tune.
Yeah,
Look at the videos and
But it's like, if you notice, the eye is the same eye you described when you go through reverse symmetry. It's like bleeding and shit.
Thank
Bloody
you.
eye.
Thank you.
So he's like barely alive too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. He's like you said, it's the dark symmetry is like, the crying of the blood, only it's not black. He has to make it red so people can recognize it as blood. But the reality is, when by that time the blood's all deoxygenated and it's just fucking coagulated and shit, so it becomes like black. But of course he's not sophisticated enough to show that, and you know they're all idiots. So many of these people who troll us like he's doing, and
I'm sure he's American too.
Yeah, he's like something. Believe me, I mean it's Yeah, America, it's like we spawn them. We spawn them. Like it's a.
They're the most brainwashed, delusional, clueless people on the planet.
Thank you. So what's his trip? Like he thinks that the military has omnipresent, all-powerful God technology that he thinks sources out of nowhere. It comes from books.
Well, that's what it's sounding like. Because you were talking about occult phenomenon and supernatural stuff with the military and shit.
Yeah.
And he's probably trying to say, no, that's just all tech or something like all technology only.
Yeah, which I pointed out, they use technology merely to frame their occult objectives.
Yeah.
So, what's everyone's opinion on... Aristides? Yeah.
About that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess both could be a thing. Technology, magic, they could both be things, right?
Yeah.
Hey, before we get too far, my friend had asked a question in the chat, and we really didn't get a chance to get to it. Do you want to?
Oh, sure. What is it? Which one is?
It's the Tao guy.
Okay, so let's look up at what.
Tao. If you
Oh,
scroll
that's
up,
who he is.
Yeah. And so,
yes, we had a question about some, if this one guy was connected to a Kino.
Oh, okay. So let's. I'm trying to pay
wait.
proper respect to him. So I'm rolling back up to the point where he introduced himself.
John Norman, John Wayne.
Oh,
Gacy,
I'll read it.
Philip Pass. Right.
Okay, thank you. I'll read it.
Yeah.
I'll read it aloud. So, first.
He made a typo. Fell into. Yeah.
Okay.
Fell.
2, 3, 4,
he corrects
5,
it.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He has 10 Taos. So we'll call him 10 Tao.
All right.
Tao times 10. Tao times 10 says, fell having a Kino rabbit hole about how he was connected to, or tell. That's what you meant.
He made a typo. He corrected it later. He said he fell down this rabbit hole, and he's asking about John Norman.
So tell having a Kino rabbit hole about how he was connected to John Norman / John Wayne Gacy, Philip Paskey, and Dean Corll via Project Delta around 1970s. Glowies burned 200,000 K plus names from info cards. Fell into an Aquino rabbit hole. Okay, I get what he's saying now. Fell into an Aquino rabbit hole about how he was connected to John Norman / John Wayne Gacy, Philip Paskey, and Dean Corll via Project Delta around 1970s. Glowies burned 200,000 plus names from info cards. All right, and let's take a look at this. Then
Any of these guys sound familiar to you?
Hold on for a second. I don't know how many dolls are in my name either. Just did it until the character limit. 10. There's 10. Then he says, thank you for the welcome. Enjoy listening every now and then. And I guess it was all centered on that question. Now, just so people understand.
I told him to stop by and give it a upvote, and then he had been wondering this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Have you ever heard of these guys? Anyway.
Okay, so the majority of...
Basically, he's asking if Aquino is connected to some of these serial killers and other people.
Okay, yeah. And
like John Wayne Gacy. Did you ever... That's interesting there. Like, he's a famous serial killer.
That's right. John Wayne Gacy was the only name that stands out to me. The rest of these guys I do not know, but I do know Project Delta. So Project Delta, just so people understand, is not to be confused with Delta Force. I know relatively little about Delta Force, but when it comes to Project Delta was the original United States Army internet that was one of the few internets that existed around the time that DARPA developed these internets. Then these internets were quite small. These were like very regional. And if you ever were to see the original maps of the internet, they're like literally 2 or 3 lines stretching from one city to the next, and they're all on the left coast. They're all West Coast. They have nothing to do with the East Coast. The East Coast had none of this going on. DARPA was completely centered around Berkeley, California, San Francisco, California, and what became the Silicon Valley region, a few areas around that were local regional desert military bases connected. But DeltaNet was just pretty much the U.S. Army's internet for child porn.
that.
Yeah. No, oh, what happened? Go on.
His camera was on.
Oh,
Oh.
someone just got a flash of my like double chin Ian West style.
Yeah, I just saw you.
But-
God, you nearly look like a.
Yeah, well, it's a bad angle in my defense.
Yes, that's
I'm
what.
at work and
yeah.
it was like literally from looking down. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't need to defend it too much, but
Yeah,
you get the
it's
point.
it's
Worst
cute.
possible angle plus just being overweight equals Ian West. You know.
Yeah, well, that weight will disappear soon. Jesus Christ, with all the. Oh
Yeah.
yes.
Way better looking than him.
Yeah. Now is our chance. Okay, take it away, Brendan. I'll finish answering this question, and then the stage is yours to bitch about the motherfuckers who have invaded your home. Brendan Zoget has suffered a home invasion and squatters. He'll tell us about this in a minute. Basically,
Yeah.
I want to answer this guy. What I do know is that the DeltaNet carried nothing, almost nothing but child porn. And the Army was just using that as their way to circulate child porn to each other. And but it was supposed to be like this top secret info connectivity experiment, and it was all shit, just like everything else they do. And but when it comes to the serial killers and their connection with Michael Aquino, I do not know of any